With the $5 meal deal at McDonald's, you pick a McDouble or a McChicken, then get a small fry, a small drink, and a 4-piece McNuggets. That's a lot of McDonald's for not a lot of money.
Price and participation may vary. For a limited time only.
Why get all your holiday decorations delivered through Instacart? Because maybe you only bought 2 wreaths but have 12 windows. Or maybe your toddler got very eager with the advent calendar. Or maybe the inflatable snowman didn't make it through the snowstorm. Or maybe the twinkle lights aren't twinkling. Whatever the reason, this season, Instacart's here for hosts and their whole holiday haul. Get decorations from the Home Depot, CVS, and more through Instacart and enjoy free delivery on your first 3 orders. Service fees and terms apply.
Audible's best of 2024 picks are here. Discover the year's top audiobooks, podcasts, and originals in all your favorite genres. From memoirs and sci-fi to mysteries and thrillers, Audible's curated list in every category is the best way to hear 2024's best in audio entertainment. Like a stunning new full-cast production of George Orwell's 1984. Heartfelt memoirs like Supreme Court Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson's Lovely One. The year's best fiction like The Women by Kristen Hanna. And Percival Everett's brilliantly subversive James. Audible. There's more to imagine when you listen. Go to audible.com/imagine and discover all the year's best waiting for you.
This episode brought to you by the following patrons: Legos and Blueberries, Leaf Girl, Min, Sex Caliber Bones a Lot, Madeline, Alyssa, Vixen, Holly, Natasha, Laura, Jeremy with the Laser Eyes, Allie, Logan, Libby, Aaron, Kristen, Tia, and Jonathan. But because it's that special time of the month, we get to shout out our You Can Get It levels, and they are Eric, Heather, Kathy, Nikki, Knitting Menace, Renee, Billy, Caitlin, Dharma, Grace, Seth, Bryce, Sean, Allie, Dr. Voorhees, MD, Amelia, Becca, Stace, AJ Royalty, Radioactive Spider Gwen, Irene, Naomi, Bex, Laura Lubu, Cameron, Kaylee, Jackie, Alyssa, Mushroom Snail Fox, and Unintentionally Badass, aka Jennifer. And all the patrons want you to know you're loved, you're listened to, and you're a valuable member of this awesome Horror Virgin community. If you want to hang out with us, do so in the Facebook group where we'll be hanging out and splitting in twain daily.
In twain.
In twain!
I think I just have to start, because if we don't start the podcast, I will just start screaming and then I'll have to like stop mid thought. So
yeah, go. Just start it. Let's go.
Thank you for tuning into the Horror Virgin and choosing this fucking movie. I am Paige Wesley.
And I'm your Horror Virgin Todd, which means I don't like scary movies, but you guys makes me watch a soul-crushing one tonight. And that movie was The Substance. Good God, Paige, I just watched this. I think you just finished it yourself.
I just finished cackling for 28 minutes straight. Yes, I just finished this movie with the craziest, I'll call it a 4th act that I've ever seen. Like, I was sitting it through 2nd and 3rd acts. I was like, you could trim 30 minutes out of this. Why is this? Why? And then you get to the 4th and I was like, nope. Yeah. Standing ovation.
Yeah.
Standing ovation.
When she shows up at the end in the dress with a double nip slip. Come on. Paige.
I lost my mind.
Paige, she got all dolled up. She put an earring in every of the 9 ears or whatever that she had. It was awesome.
When she just pressed the earrings into the side of her, I fucking screamed. I loved it so much.
She may as well got like a little hammer and hammered it in. Like it was like just sticking into the putty that was the side of her face. Which also, the Cronenberg of it all. Like I was like, what are we? Yes. Absolutely, let's do this. I am in love. I lost my mind at the end. This movie, like,
oh God,
grossed me out a lot.
Sure, yeah, it's pretty gross.
It really, like, body horror doesn't normally get me. This one got me a lot.
Sure,
and man, it made me sad. And let me just say this, as like a white guy.
Sure.
Can I just say on behalf of all white guys, like, Paige, why can't you just smile more? Like, God.
Fuck you.
Like, what is wrong with you? No, clearly, I'm sorry. Society sucks. I apologize. It's terrible.
Okay, but and yes, it is bad. Sometimes things feel bad, especially right now, considering.
Oh, did something bad happen recently?
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah.
But this actually made me feel so much better because this is my warm hug movie now.
I thought the same thing. I literally was thinking the exact same thing, Paige. 100%.
In large part because, sorry, I have laughed so hard I am crying now. In large part because this movie even fucking exists.
I know.
Like, people gave them money. There are A-list people. It is shot beautifully. This movie is gorgeous. And it is a fuck you to the patriarchy in the best kind of. It is literally women being allowed to be as fucking gross as we want. And I love it. Yes. I feel like I just fist fought the patriarchy in the parking lot. Still lost, but we're getting there.
You had one of those like Peter Griffin chicken like fights with them across all of Los Angeles.
Oh my God. When we finished Immaculate and I was like, I feel like I just fist fought a bear. Like, what just happened?
Except that bear was literal the devil.
And as I was getting to the end of this movie, because like the movie clearly has a lot to say about body image and about the male gaze, holy shit, and like so much. And I'm like, this is a lot, but like, I don't know how they're going to bring this in for a landing because there's like.
Oh man, I thought the same thing for like the first like 40 minutes.
Yes.
I was like, man, are they like, I think they might be. I was like, okay, I think because I knew a little bit about the movie.
Sure.
That they're showing what society is right here.
Yes.
And then the second she misses a feeding or whatever, I didn't know what the kickoff was going to be. Some shit's going to go south.
Yep.
And it does quickly.
Well, and here's how I thought this was going to end. This is what I thought.
Yeah.
I thought that she was going to have to kill her and live with the fact that she could not be content with herself because everyone on Earth was telling her she couldn't.
Oh, you mean like every contestant on the TV show Botched?
Yes.
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 Yeah.
Yes.
Paige.
That's what I thought the end was going to be. And so I was very ready for that. But then I kept looking and I was like, how is there 40 minutes left of this fucking movie? What? Like, we have come to the point, right?
Because Carrie's got to go to a ball, Paige. Because Carrie's got to go to a ball. I loved it.
Because then they took it 20 steps further of like, first of all, fucking no.
Yeah.
Like, she was yelled at this entire time. Like, people pushed her to do this and made her feel like she was worthless. And now they need to be confronted with the fucking monstrosity they created.
Yeah.
And holy shit, I couldn't stop laughing and just with glee. I fucking loved it. It is
Paige.
disgusting.
Oh,
I
it's so
fucking
gross.
loved it.
It's so gross.
It's real gross.
At the end of the movie, she's like raining down so much like red Kool-Aid
it's a
looking
fire
blood.
hose of blood.
Yes, it's insane. Like the Kool-Aid man was like gonna bust through the wall and be like, "Oh fuck, what's happening? I'm out."
Well, and the cyclical nature of the end, we get our perfect Joseph Campbell circle.
Yes, we do.
Of where she ends up, and basically it being like, yeah, you did this to her and you don't care about her at all. So like, don't act like you did. This is what happens. And then they just street sweep her over it and you forget. And I was like, oh God, this fucking movie.
Paige, all that's left of her is her face.
A blob,
like
yes.
she's a fucking Doctor Who episode.
Yes.
And it crawls over and dies on her star. And then the street sweeper just sweeps it up because, and the last like line of dialogue we heard was a repeat of the guy in the hallway saying, "You're irreplaceable."
Yes.
And it just immediately shows how replaceable, in truth, we all are.
And disposable.
You know?
Disposable.
Because like we're mortals. Like we will not live forever, unfortunately. You know? Like
sure, right. No one will live forever. And the movie has so much to say about the very nature of both being perceived and being perceived by society as a whole, not just the male gaze. It does cover both, but also how we deal with ourselves internally and how we beat ourselves up and are not content and where that can lead. and perceiving that we are irreplaceable and that this precious version of us is the only version worth loving.
Or that has any value or whatever.
That has any value.
Yeah.
And when you don't give yourself value, like, people will try to dispose of you. And it's all of it, all in one. Oh, I fucking loved it. Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I loved the use of nudity, which I know is a weird note, but I feel like this movie really fucking made the nudity count.
Yeah, I honestly think it follows the Paige Wesley patented formula of more blood, more
and
titties, for
More
sure.
blood, more
Yeah,
titties.
like when I saw that, I was like, shit, we've got to get a t-shirt out. Like that, like what? This is the perfect movie for that.
Oh, there's so much blood, so many titties.
And it's not just blood and titties. Like
It has meaning.
at the fucking New Year's Eve thing that night, at the final like carry of it all, half of her face barfs out a boob.
A titty, a boob.
Paige, come on.
I stood up.
What metaphor? I didn't see anything. Society's great. You guys are just crazy.
I didn't really understand the ending.
Oh, I didn't get it. It would have made more sense if it was about societal beauty standards for men. Like, I can't look like Chris Hemsworth.
Here's what I'm going to say. This applies to men too.
It does.
This happens to men too.
And they do sexualize for like 1 second a guy. So like
A couple. They do it a couple times. They're in the background, but yes.
but it's so quick.
Yes.
And compared to like every other time they sexualize a woman, it's
Sure.
insanely a small amount. But yeah, they do. I think they're making the point that this affects women way more.
Yes.
But it does affect sort of everyone.
Everybody. I got up and screamed when that happened. And then Jake brought me a bowl of mozzarella sticks. It was like that good. And I was like, ah. And I ate mozzarella sticks through the end of that film. So body horror don't get me, I guess.
Guys, I just heard what love sounds like. That is love in my mind. Like you're watching a movie about how societal beauty standards are fucking people up and your husband brings you more mozzarella sticks for you to enjoy it with.
Oh.
That's awesome.
Oh my goodness. I love this movie so much. And here's the thing. I fully understand that there will be people that cannot hang with this movie and cannot watch it and cannot enjoy it. I get it. It's not an easy watch, but like it's worth it for that last act. Like, oh my God, I loved it so much.
It's not an easy watch intentionally. I think the movie, it's 2 hours and 21 minutes or whatever. It's long.
Yeah.
And no notes on that, except for the first full ass minute is just black text on screen and we get all of the production companies twice.
Sure.
What? Stop it. Cut that in half or get rid of it.
Wait,
But like,
Todd, where did you watch this?
Paige, I bought this movie.
I did too. I bought it on Apple TV.
You know why? And I'll tell you why I bought it. I knew going in because it said the price to rent it was $19.99 and the total cost to buy it was $19.99. I just bought it. Anyway, it doesn't make any sense. It's like this weird like time period where it used to just be in theaters.
Yeah.
And now it's just you can buy it. So like it's the same cost to rent it.
I don't know that I could have handled this in theaters because I would have just been screaming.
Oh, Paige, I really enjoyed watching it, although it made me sad. Like, I feel terrible for what it is like to be a woman in society.
Yes, sure. I feel weirdly uplifted, and I understand that that's a complex thing to explain, in part because...
I think it makes you feel validated.
Yes.
Sorry to mansplain that to you in a great example of how the patriarchy fucks with people. But, Paige, yes, I agree with me.
Yeah, there you go. Validated, but also uplifted that someone else is saying it.
Yes, because, Paige, I wrote this in my notes. Okay. I took a beat.
Sure.
And like wrote some notes.
Yes.
Paige, do you know how often I take a beat?
Never.
And like reflect with a movie before I write notes? This may be the very first time I've done this.
I think it might be, maybe immaculate.
Oh, no, immaculate. I was just freewheeling and dealing with Rachel. It was a blast. Loved it.
You were just like, is it the devil's baby? I don't know.
Let's kill it with a rock. I think that this movie, like, it works on so many levels, and I loved the super heightened version of like everything because it allows you to play with a metaphor that is so fucking obvious. Like, it's so clear what the movie is saying, but it never says it.
No.
Which, if you think about it, That's kind of like the way society handles it. We don't really talk about it in the moment it happens normally. Normally, like internalized misogyny or like ageism you might see at work or whatever.
Just internalized hostility against yourself.
Oh,
honestly.
yeah, and that too. Like there's so many different themes it's playing with. A lot of that happens like in unsaid moments or spoken moments.
Yes.
And I loved that it's heightened in such a way that we can play with the metaphor without actually speaking about it in the movie. Because even like, she doesn't really get fired. She like is told she's retiring. You know what I'm saying? Like it's it's
she's
never
pushed
addressed.
out.
Yeah, she does get fired. I'm not saying she quit by any means.
It's just not on the screen.
It is just like, it's so obvious to everyone except for her that like she's done, right? Like you're done. You know you're too old for this, right? And it's like all of society is telling her it's time to like just retire, you know?
Which is wild.
It's
and
crazy.
This is why the casting is so fucking good. Because it's Demi Moore, who looks fucking incredible for her age, but also doing a whole bunch of work. This movie shows us nudity in multiple forms for a reason. And part of it is like, we see her body unphotoshopped, all of it. And admittedly, it's still Demi Moore. It's still her.
The woman's been gorgeous her entire life.
Her entire life still is.
Yeah, and remains so.
But she is however old she is, and that's just the way it is. But it's done in a kind way. I don't know. I feel like I will talk about this movie for years, and people will get very tired of that from me. But that's okay. The reason I find it both validating and uplifting is, as someone who worked, I think, very hard to stop thinking of myself in this lens, I'm having a fucking great time. And I'm like, more people should watch this and be like, yeah, you know what? Freedom from this is awesome. And then let's laugh at the blood cannon. Like, to be honest, the freest she is as the monster.
Yeah.
And like, when the monster still gets up and does it, I'm like, fuck yes. Like, be monstrous. Dare to be monstrous. I love it.
Yeah, I think you said something very interesting there where you're like, you have lived outside of this societal trap for long enough that you can look at it and laugh. I bet those who are firmly, comfortably inside it or are freshly out of it, they had a different reaction to this movie.
Probably.
Which I get.
Probably.
Like I could see leaving this movie theater very shaken by this. Yeah.
And shaken.
Which makes me sad. That's not your fault for feeling that way.
No.
Fucking society's putting that shit on you.
Here's what I would say. If you left this movie and you were like, fuck, and were not joyed by the blood cannon, I understand. And I feel like, hey, sit with that for a bit. It's uncomfortable, but like, do it. Think about like, how much cooler would your life be if you told Dennis Quaid to fuck off all the time?
Oh,
like,
yes.
So fun.
And here's the deal. Tell Dennis Quaid to fuck off all the time. When I made the joke earlier, like, on behalf of all men, why can't you just smile more? Like, tell that guy to fuck off every time.
I have said some horrifying things to men, and I regret none of them. And you know what? My life is better for it. But also, just sit with yourself and think about how you talk to yourself. Because as much as this movie talks about society, 100%, and is very accurate,
Paige,
I would say.
You're right about the internal struggle, too.
It is so much about her internal struggle. The part where they're like, do you want to stop? And she says no.
It's heartbreaking. Paige, the first time she's given the choice, when it was just the crypt keeper finger, I was like, call it off now immediately. Like, please stop, because it's only going to get worse. You know, like, this is not something that you can walk away from. It's always going to get worse. You're lucky it was just the crypt keeper finger.
Yes.
As we come to find out.
Yes. And it's all kinds of things. It's like, when you can't ever be content with who you are, you will never be content.
Yeah.
Even when it's bad. There is no contentment in the hypercriticism that our society demands of women, just in general.
Yeah.
So like, don't do it. Tell people to fuck off if they tell you to smile. But like, that I think is where, like, if you can get through that, you get to the end where it is the ultimate absurdity of the end of that thinking.
Yes.
And that's what's so cathartic.
I think this is one of those like rare movies that needs to be long. It needs to say this whole thing. And like, you can't say it in 90 minutes. You need every frame of this long movie.
They needed every minute of it. And it's interesting because as I was watching it, I was taking notes on where things were happening in the timeline, because 2 hours and 20 minutes is longer than most movies in general. Definitely longer than a lot of horror movies. You get your Midsummers and whatever, but those are rare. Those are like 1 in 10 years.
Sure.
This is very long compared to most horror movies. And as I was timing things out with story beats, I'm like, these are all in the right order, but like, where's the time go? Like, where are we going to get a bigger chunk of that time? And it is that last 30 minutes that you just could never have predicted, but ultimately take this movie from being really good, even without it, to fucking incredible. Like, I loved it so much.
I mean, I think this movie out A24 to A24, and like, that is hard to do.
It's so hard to do, but they fucking did it.
They crushed it.
They did it.
It feels very, and I know it's like it's a writer-director who wrote it.
Yes.
I know nothing about them. This is the first thing from them I've seen.
I don't either, but I'm going to see fucking everything they make. Shit.
Yeah, I'm sure it's great. But this felt like it was a very personal, very singular vision. It was a very personal story.
Yes.
And they had like a very unique point to tell.
Yep.
And I love that they like got the runway to tell it and like just got to do it at such a heightened level. And man, I enjoyed it. I get why this would be hard to watch.
Sure.
And parts of it were hard for me, but it's not the parts that I think were hard for the majority of people. This was hard to watch.
Sure.
The stuff that got me was when it looked like Danny DeVito was going to push out of Demi Moore's back.
I wrote that in my notes. I wrote that in my notes.
It looked like the couch. I don't know what we're doing, but that's what it looks like.
I just want to be pure.
I know. I totally thought that. And honestly, okay, can we talk? I know we got to get to the movie, and there's a lot of like scenes to get through.
There's a lot to talk about.
But I want to talk about some things before we get into it, because I don't want to break up the talk about the metaphor. Firstly, I don't know that I've ever done one of these, but I've got to do a marketing corner, because like that is my day job.
Go.
And if you want to manipulate rich people into buying crap at really inflated prices, you do it exactly like they get her interested in the substance, which is to like create a like almost heist-ish experience that bakes in this like idea of exclusivity into this thing. And like, it does turn out to be real. But normally this kind of shit is like sneakers that were made the same place that my sneakers were made. You know what I'm saying? So it's like very funny to me that they included that in this. It's great. It's like shit you would see in what was the movie about the Fox kids? Not the movie, but the TV show. It had Brian Cox in it.
Succession.
Yeah, it reminds me of Succession.
But for a hot section, I thought you were thinking of Fox Children Hybrids, and I was like, I don't know about this movie.
Oh, Paige, you never heard of Furry?
No, I have, but I was like, there's a show?
I've been watching a lot of X-Files, so like I've got Fox Mulder in my head.
Oh, we need to talk about how I made a joke about him drawing boobs on Bigfoot, and then
Paige.
Literally the next day.
I literally text you the scene. I was watching it, and I like sent you a video of me zooming in on the boobs drawn on Bigfoot.
Drawn on Bigfoot.
Oh my God.
Now, if Bigfoot had coughed up a boob onto the stage, that would have taken it from good to great.
If X-Files had been brave in 93 to tackle these issues, maybe we wouldn't be here as a society. That's all I'm saying.
Man. I think they were specifically also poking fun at the beauty and skincare industry that will do things in like exclusive drops. And it's like, oh, only so many of these. And these people got the PR package so that they could tell people about it. And oh, it's this. And you have to go through all these hoops to get it because it's the thing that you have to get. There's that. There's also like when she has her workout gear on, it looks very much like Kim Kardashian's line of swimsuits. There's a whole lot of just tiny little bits in this movie. Chef's kiss.
Love it.
Continue with marketing corner.
Oh, that was it. But this is like the perfect play to run to convince any rich idiot to buy anything.
Yeah. I also love that it was injectable. I thought that was very purposeful.
Oh, yeah. It's like Botox or, there's so many things that you inject into you.
Fillers.
That help.
Yes.
Fillers that help, quote, help, right? So like, yeah. Also, I think the one thing that helped but didn't actually change the way she looked at all was The dragon cloak, like that shit was dope.
Oh, that thing was so fucking awesome.
I gotta get a dragon cloak because then I can show up to D&D night looking like the freshest bard north of Watertown. You know what I'm saying?
You
Like,
play as a bard? I mean, I'm not surprised, but like, man.
I guess it's Waterdeep, not Watertown. But of course I'm a bard, Paige. Really?
No, I know. It's expected.
I make up songs for no reason.
I know. I'm just like, don't you want powers?
Paige, first off, how dare you? Charisma is a power.
Riz.
Ooh.
Roll 24 Riz.
Man, I've been getting critical fails recently, but used to have it. Used to have the charm. I actually, okay, not to bring it back to the movie when I'm talking about myself, which is typically my favorite topic. They really dive deep on the world loves her as Sue.
Yes.
And hates her as Elizabeth, right?
Yep.
And man, it's like the pretty privilege
Yes.
on display.
Yes.
But from someone who like knows that they used to have it and don't anymore.
Yep.
Ugh. It is like,
Yeah.
it comes from a privileged place and I get that. Like it's someone who knows what that feels like and that's not an experience everyone has.
Yes.
But it is sad in that moment because it is something that she had that she no longer has and she feels like she's not worth it as a person. And like when she has that conversation with the old version of the guy who gets her into it, sort of, about like what's sad is like we don't feel like we're worth being around anymore. I was like, good God, that makes me so sad.
This makes me want to go out and watch another A24 movie that's out right now called A Different Man with Sebastian Stan. But it goes the opposite way of like, he starts out with
A metal hand?
like a facial, like, I don't know exactly what, but they're doing it with prosthetics. It looks like a type of like disease basically.
Ooh,
and
okay.
trades something to be Sebastian Stan. And then understands how people treat him differently on the other side. Like if I had a nickel for every like person I know who lost weight and suddenly got treated so differently, it made them hate people, I'd be a rich lady. I'd be so rich because like the reality is people should have been treating you like a person the whole time. And like, that's what it is. It's not okay for people to treat you terrible because you are not this marketable societal ideal. And what I think this movie does, both in that scene with the old guy, fantastically written and done, but it also displays how the second you are not what they want you to be, they will throw you away. And that is the reality of what it is. So you cannot kill yourself to be their ideal. You will never be good enough for long enough. That's the reality.
You'll never be good enough, quote, good enough forever, right?
Right.
Because
right.
we as people will die one day.
Well, yeah, I mean.
So like, yeah.
Yes, dying for sure. But even just before dying, it's like they will get tired of you.
Oh, yeah. And that is true, too. And I think the movie does go all the way through to, and you will be forgotten almost. Like,
yes.
She dies on her star and they sweep her up, bro. Like,
well, and no one notices
sad.
She's missing. She's gone for weeks.
Yeah.
No one notices. She's gone for months, 3 months. No one even calls it in. No one notices she's missing.
Yeah. It is assumed that she is taking her step out of society.
Yes.
Because she hit 50 years old, Paige.
She hit 50, even though she looks better than I have looked at ever.
I mean, that's a societal standard you shouldn't hold yourself to.
That is,
so
I would
saith
never.
a wonderful movie I think you should watch.
Look, here, I've got my own thing going on, and I'm not for everybody, and that's okay.
It is honestly better.
Yes.
You shouldn't be for everybody.
You shouldn't. Some people suck, and you don't want them to like you.
Yeah.
Because then it means, like, they have bad taste, and you don't want to be bad taste.
You don't. You want to be the lady that shows up at that New Year's Eve pageant with all 6 of your ears pierced. Paige, we got to get into this movie so we can go through it scene by scene.
Yes.
Because like we've got a lot to talk about.
We have so much to talk about. Okay, so now I don't know if I just completely ignored the credits. That's entirely possible. But I have no notes on them.
It's possibly because they were just a black screen and then literally the production companies twice. It was a full minute of nothing.
Yeah, my eyes just rolled back into my head. But we open on an egg, a cracked egg, and they inject something into the yolk and it like births a second yolk.
It cellularly divides is what happens.
But it very specifically looks like it's squirting it out. I think maybe just for grossness.
I mean,
but it cellularly divides.
I clearly don't know enough about cellularly division to know if that's the way it works. I assume it's a squirt. I have no idea.
Yeah, I was like, that yolk be gushing out another yolk. Gross. Then the first like 8 minutes are shot from above, I think in a way to tell us what this movie is about to do, which is like, I'm going to show you how this shit works from 100 feet up so that you can have a very critical look at what we all do to each other and ourselves. And then we're going to finish it up. And it does finish in that same shot, but we see them basically creating and laying down her Hollywood star. And it never specifically says Hollywood, although it is very much implied.
It's under 3 palm trees. It's definitely Hollywood. Although I don't know what street it's on because she's not next to any other stars. And that's not how that works.
Exactly. Well, and we don't know like what company is like TV show. They keep it very vague because honestly, we don't need that information. It would bog us down from the cool shit.
Right.
Anyway, we get a 3-minute montage of like time ravaging that star, people walking over it, people dropping things on it, people standing on it, people sleeping on it, like everything.
We literally see the movie play out to the star, and then we see it happen to the star of the TV show that happens as the movie starts.
Right.
Like the metaphor is on display. Like we see the egg, we see the cause of it, and then we see the metaphor on display with just the star, and then we see it for the whole movie. It's like, I get it's like an art house way to start a movie.
Love it.
And like not everyone's into it.
I'm
a nerd and I liked it.
I loved it.
That's all I'll say.
Was super into it.
Yeah, same.
And this is the one thing where I was like, is this LA? Because it snows on the star. And I was like, we don't do that.
Paige,
but okay.
Okay. I really do think if you see what happens to the star, it sort of tracks what actually happens to Demi Moore's character over the course of this movie.
Yes.
I think the snow is like, you don't get snow in LA. That is there to tell us some weird shit's gonna happen.
Yeah.
Hold on to your old shit belts. There's a 4th act.
Hold on to your fucking butts.
Yeah.
Hold on to your butts.
Yeah.
Anyway, we open on what looks like an exercise video. Very 90s coded, sweating to the oldies, Suzanne Summers, high leg bodysuits.
I was going to say Suzanne Summers, yeah.
Well, and that's why I wondered if that's why they called her Sue, the character.
Oh, yeah, maybe. I don't know.
Maybe, not sure.
But Suzanne Summers is the lady from the 80s who like popularized this kind of thing. She was an actress first and then did this, right?
Well, and she specifically had the Thigh Master.
Oh.
The Thigh Master. There are a lot of, late night.
Oh, Paige.
Lots of exercise. The Thigh Master, the Gazelle, the one where you kneel on it and it just like.
Childhood Todd's familiar with the Thigh Master.
The hula chair or whatever they call it. But this is Elizabeth Sparkle. And you want to sparkle your life. And she's doing it. She's like, you don't want to look like a giant jellyfish on the beach, just like instant fat phobia. But I do want her silver shoes. They look awesome. But she finishes, they wrap. She's walking backstage down an entire hallway of 1 million different pictures of her. Everyone's wishing her a happy birthday. And I was like, oh no, birthday.
Well, and you can see her like wincing every time someone says happy birthday. It's clear to her it's not a celebration. She's sad about this new decade she's entering and what it means for her.
Yes.
Which, like, I get it.
I do, but I did post a 10-year reflective thing on Instagram the other day, and I feel like I'm nailing it.
Paige, I did the same thing because of you. Okay, so I'll go ahead and say that I did mine after you did yours, and I did it, you know, how you can be like, add yours.
Sure.
I did mine off of yours.
Right.
But what did I say to you?
Oh, God, I don't remember.
So I responded to yours and said, insert they're the same picture meme.
Oh,
because
yeah.
you look the same, you asshole.
You know, I have a theory. I think I looked older back then. And then my age is just catching up to what my body looked like.
Yeah. So I once heard Tina Fey talk about Paula Pell this way. And it's like,
yes,
she's always looked 45. When she was 25, she looked 45.
Yes.
So now that she's 45, she's getting cast in everything because she looks so 45, you know?
Right.
And so, and also she's like a good friend of Tina Fey and amazing. Like the lady can act, you know?
So funny.
Anyway, so like maybe that's what it is for you. You've always looked 30.
Yeah, I think I've always looked 30. And so for like, from like 18 to 29, it was not that impressive. But now at 37, people are like, damn, that looks great.
Yeah.
I'll take it. Whatever. I'm happy. So that's the thing that matters.
Paige, that's what this movie is saying. Focus on your happiness and not on what Dennis Quaid wants you to look like.
Yeah.
And present or whatever.
Well, and I have some things to talk about later in the movie when we get to some stuff. I'll table it till then.
Table it, baby.
Anyway, she goes to go to the bathroom, but it's closed for cleaning. And so she goes to the men's room, which I do want to highlight. This entire hallway, which we walk many, many times, is very reminiscent of The Shining with the carpet and the walls and all of it.
Yes, it is.
And then she walks into this bathroom, which is very reminiscent of the red bathroom in The Shining.
Yeah.
So like out the gate, we are getting some amazing references. But so she's in one of the stalls and Dennis Quaid comes up to the urinal and this is shot. So Dennis Quaid is shot so disgustingly.
Yeah.
I love it.
Paige, it's because it's a high definition fisheye and he's leaning so close to it.
Leaning into
So it's not even like the close-up shots of him eating like we get later, which is
I
also
hate that
gross.
too.
Like that is gross, but it's a different kind of gross. This feels more like invasive gross.
Yes.
Where it's like someone's like leaning into your personal space. Later when he's eating, that's more of like a, oh, why are you eating like that? Kind of a gross.
Ooh, this is if you are a person who has had sexual encounters with men, you might be familiar with this vantage point
Yeah.
as they lean over you and struggle. And that is what it is shot from.
Yeah.
And like, but also in the back, hearing the like broken stream.
Yeah.
Like,
I was about to
it's
say, the guy's got prostate issues. That's all I know.
Yes, prostate issues.
I'm not a doctor, but I think he should have someone stick a finger in his butt.
I mean, it's because he's eating like giant bathtubs full of shrimp. We'll get to it in just a second. Anyway.
Paige, I loved the way he is playing this character, though, because everything is heightened. You need him to be heightened. And I love his choice. Like, Dennis Quaid was like...
He shouts every line.
Yeah. He's like, what is the most heightened way I could play this character? The character that is the personification of, like, the patriarchy. And he was like, I got it. I'll just be Will Arnett. He's like Will Arnett from Arrested Development.
Or Will Arnett from 30 Rock, in a way.
Oh, yes.
That,
when he's
that
playing
same just like, nice job, Jack. Yeah, like that kind of, yes.
Absolutely.
I didn't even think of Will Arnett, but yes. The other thing, he is named Harvey. I think that is very significant.
Oh, I think that's very intentional too. Yes. I don't know Harvey Weinstein, so I don't know how he acts. I'm not sure he's acting like Harvey
Gross.
Weinstein. I know. I mean, I'm sure
Gross.
that part of it was accurate, but like his mannerisms even are very Will Arnett in my mind.
Yes. I'm going to burn a fun fact because when I found this in Fun Facts, I thought it was very interesting.
Burn it.
Sometimes other actors are considered for roles and for one reason or another, they don't end up playing it, but it might have been a different and not necessarily worse movie. It might have been good in a different way. So this was originally supposed to be Ray Liotta. Unfortunately, he passed away before they could shoot it.
I could see Ray Liotta doing great with this, though.
Ray Liotta would have fucking murdered.
Yeah.
It would have been so good. Not that Dennis Quaid's not good. Dennis Quaid is fucking incredible in this.
No notes for Dennis Quaid or Will Arnett, whoever played it. But I think that like, Ray Liotta could have crushed it too.
Well, and I think it's also very like Dennis Quaid as a person, different story. I don't know him personally. He seems to be an old man who has old man opinions.
Yes.
But I will say that his on-screen persona for many years has been very, very likable. And so for him to go this hard in the paint at unlikable, high marks.
Yeah.
Shit opinions. High marks for this performance, though.
Yeah, and I do think Ray Liotta would have been a different, but he could have crushed it.
Incredible.
Yeah.
Ray Liotta would have done an amazing job as well.
Goodfellas in peace, Ray Liotta. Goodfellas in peace.
Goodfellas in peace. But she overhears him as he's urinating and yelling into a cell phone of like, no, I need hot young girls in here. I need them hot and young. And now I can't believe we've kept her on this long. I don't care that she was an Oscar winner. She's just got to get the fuck out. I don't care what we promised her. And she we know he's talking about Demi Moore's character.
Yeah.
And then he does this thing that I fucking hate. I fucking hate it anytime I hear some fucking bullshit man on the internet talk about this shit where he's like, well, their fertility starts decreasing at 25. We're not baby factories, asshole. Like, we have whole lives and things that we do outside of that. If people want to choose to pop them out, great. Good for you. Happy you could do that. But like, to make that our whole purpose and to be like, you no longer have worth because you can't do this one thing, that's so fucking incensed. Hate it. Love that this movie called it out.
Yeah.
Because he just like tosses it in at the end of the phone call and he's like, how old's Jennifer? Yeah, you better get busy. Now we will eventually meet whoever that was on the phone and they are all old as fuck. So like this idea that whoever this old guy he's talking to has some 25-year-old or whatever, that they are probably on their 4th or 5th 25-year-old. Ugh.
Paige, all I'm saying is I don't see any relationship to Harvey Weinstein in this character at all. I don't get it. The metaphor was missed on me. No, I mean, like, it's gross.
Yeah.
I also think the guy...
What, he was on the phone with Leonardo DiCaprio? You're right. That is kind of gross.
I didn't think about that, but definitely, like, it definitely was.
Ooh.
Yeah.
But he leaves the bathroom. She comes out of the stall. She heard all of that.
Yeah, she's like, man, it sucks to be whoever that guy was talking about, right?
Nah, she knows.
No, she definitely knows.
And if you didn't realize that she knew, and if you didn't realize he was talking about her, we get about 30 seconds of water going down a drain. So it's just like, understand? The water is her career.
Yeah.
It's very well done.
Yes.
They then have to go to lunch together. Gross.
And this is where we really see this guy and the way he eats bottom feeders, like shrimp and all of that stuff.
And the mouth noises, the flies on his.
This movie, there's a lot in this movie that's like very visceral for me. And this is one of those scenes that grossed me out, like to the point where I was almost gagging because it's the mouth sounds, like it just grosses me out. And whoever did the Foley on this movie did a great job throughout. This scene is great.
Yes.
Because a lot of that stuff had to be added in later and it's so on.
Yep.
Like it's in sync with the video and gross. Paige, another Foley note that I want to say now because I'll forget. When Sue is pulling Elizabeth across the tile floor, there's like that perfect like tile squeak, and I was like, whoever did that? I just want to stand up and clap.
I noticed it too.
Because that was two Foley artists. One guy was like, we got that thing at like tile. Okay, get naked. I'm going to drag you across
Squeak across it.
100% that's how they got that sound because it's perfect.
There's the part where she's dragging Margaret Qualley into the living room and drags her down just the carpeted steps into the...
Thump.
Yes! I was like...
100%.
Nailing it.
It honestly was just two like idiot people in a Foley studio dragging each other across tile or down steps. Like someone has a headache because we got that perfect sound. That's all I'm saying.
Oh.
You can't get that perfect thump unless you use an actual head, guys. It's science.
Watermelons just don't sound the same. But as he is demolishing a bathtub of shrimp, he's just like, and at 50, it just fucking stops. Like, because we haven't really heard anything he's saying until
Paige,
he gets to that.
I love her response, though. She's like, what stops?
What stops?
You ignorant idiot man. Like,
yes.
And he's clearly like, I don't know, your vagina. I gotta go. Like, he like clearly doesn't know anything about it.
George, Harvey, ratings are insane.
It's so funny to me. Because he clearly has no idea. Like, he just has no idea.
He has no idea. He's just full of shit.
But, I mean, what he's saying here, I think, is I am society, and I have to give society what society requires. I give it, and that is hot, young, sexy things, and you're not.
Yeah. Gross.
Yeah. But, I mean, again, this movie is saying things very loud and very heightened.
Yes.
But this shit, I think the reason it's done in a restaurant is because this is how, like, a lady news anchor gets fired at 38 at a restaurant in public, and
so she can't make a scene.
Yeah.
Yes.
And they say crazy shit to her that's like, well, the network just wants to move in a new direction.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they'll never say it's because you've gotten older and maybe don't look like a 23-year-old,
Right.
Like, it's one of those things that it kind of goes unsaid, even though it's screamed at you in society. And that's why I think I love the movie screams the metaphor at you, but doesn't really say what you would actually hear in that scene. It's like screaming what is actually happening. I love it. It's like so blatant, and that makes it perfect. I love it.
Yes. So she leaves that lunch, understandably upset, and drives past a billboard of herself selling toothpaste that is being torn down. And as that happens, she is T-boned by another car in an accident that looks like it would kill anyone in it.
She's fine, though.
Like, it is a brutal... She's fine.
I love how this brutal, like, car-flipping T-bone accident that hit her side, she would probably be dead. You're right, Paige.
Yeah.
She shows up at the doctor's office, And the doctor's like, didn't even break a tooth or whatever. Like, he's like, damn, you're in great shape.
It's your lucky day.
Which, listen, I think they do this on purpose because I don't know how old Demi Moore is. She is in great shape.
Yes.
In her current shape, she's in great shape.
Yes. It is somebody saying to her, you look incredible. Full stop. This is your body doing what it's supposed to do at the height.
Yes, I think that the doctor saying it is like, we get a doctor who is like, from a medical perspective,
yes,
you're in great shape.
Yes.
And then outside we get a man,
yes,
who like knew her before she became famous and was like, God, you are so gorgeous.
Yes.
Like, he sees her for who she is, like sees her as a person, right? And man, the stuff with him later on makes me so sad.
Yes.
But
oh my goodness.
I love that we get both sides of that.
Yes.
In this scene, we get a doctor say, you're in great shape. And we get a guy who knew her before she was famous say, man, you're gorgeous. As this version of herself.
Yes.
And then we get someone who looks like a Twilight vampire. And he's just like, say it. Substance. Like, he's just like,
this is the tan skin of a killer, Bella.
This is the spinal column of a substance user, Bella.
Yes.
He's like reading her spine like it's gonna tell him a story. Like, he's like running his fingers up and down her spine in a very creepy way.
The one thing I will say, though, and I do still love, it's rough to watch the part later with the date, and we'll talk about it more when we get there. But this movie, even though it uses the health barometer that she's doing well and the guy outside, it's very clear that, like, it does not matter. Those validations are nice to have, but ultimately, if you do not validate yourself in your self-worth, they are worthless. And, like, the movie is loud and clear about it, especially when we get to later. So table that.
Yeah.
We'll talk about it again.
Absolutely, we will.
But yes, the doctor leaves. And this other, the nurse who, like, must, I guess, only work every other week. But the nurse comes in and is like, hey, your spine is incredible. Like, you've got a fucking great spine. It's perfect for this experimental drug that you're going to find in an alleyway.
Which is, like, actually where she gets it. Like, that's not a joke.
Nope. And he hands her coat and he's like, all right, have a great day. Never mind. I didn't say anything. And then as she leaves, she finds a flash drive in her pocket.
Man, I love that he had, like, because we very clearly see him hand her the jacket, and we see his birthmark that we see later that signifies that we run into the old version of this guy, right?
Right.
I love that they did all that. I love that he planted it on her, and I just love the way that it led to where it got. I loved it.
Well, and it's also this, like, the new and improved version, or the other person is the one advocating for it.
Yeah.
Because they are the one that truly benefits from.
Cui bono, Paige, of course.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes. Mm-hmm. But also, I also love how the movie telegraphs that it will be him, because he looks artificial.
Man, he is wearing more foundation, like, than I've seen on anybody. It's almost like they put, like, a white powder on his face and then put foundation on it. So it looked like he was lighter around the edges of his face.
Yes.
I said it earlier. He looks like a Twilight vampire to me.
He looks like someone who goes to a tanning booth that is just the part of one of those, like, carnival picture frames that you put your face through, and it just tans the very front of your face.
Yeah, I always liked to call that, and I think it sort of applies here too. They look freshly hatched. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, a little bit.
Like a little red faced.
Yeah.
And he looks red. He looks freshly hatched.
But conveniently, we get a good shot of his eyes, because that will help us know who we're dealing with later.
And the birthmark. That gives it away too.
And the birthmark. Yes. Which it's one of my few logic problems in this movie, and I ignored it because the metaphor, but I think it's interesting that he still has the birthmark. But then we also see that Margaret Qualley kind of has her birthmark too. So I guess some things just stay. But I think it's interesting because a lot of times birthmarks are things that people get self-conscious about. And it's interesting to me that those things are still in the version of you that is air quotes better.
Yeah, that is interesting.
I think that's a really interesting note.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I wonder if it's like, if it is just using it as this person is this person that we saw with this birthmark.
Right.
This ties them as people together, and as we know, they are one.
Right.
Because the movie tells us that.
Right.
Or if it is like, society gives birthmarks a pass normally. I don't know.
They don't, though. That's the thing. I think society really doesn't.
I know. That's why I don't think that really works with the metaphor. I think the director's doing it, and I don't know. So please don't
I don't
at
know.
me. But my speculation would be that it's just like for the audience to know, okay, this Margaret Qualley is the young Demi Moore or whatever, you know? Like, it's to tie those two people together.
I think it was very purposeful that they cast her because she is Andie MacDowell's daughter. So, like, it is Hollywood royalty for a woman who has been considered to be beautiful forever, but has also kind of just aged and is still gorgeous, but rejected a lot of this beauty stuff. Andie MacDowell did. So I thought that was a really interesting casting choice as well.
Yeah.
Anyway, so she finds the flash drive and is like, what is this? And there's a note that just says, it changed my life. She leaves the doctor's office and she runs into Fred from 10th grade homeroom, who is like, you haven't changed a bit. You look incredible. Can we go out for a drink sometime? And she's like, I mean, give me your number, I guess. And he like drops it in a puddle, but she still holds on to it or whatever.
Yeah, she picks it up and takes it with her. Like, she is interested in like possibly connecting with this person. I think honestly her hesitation is she doesn't feel like she's worthy of connecting with someone, which makes me sad.
Ooh, I think it's actually a little more layered than that.
Oh, you think maybe she thinks she's too good for him in this moment?
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, I think that could be too. Definitely later in the movie, it's the other, though, and that breaks my heart.
Yes. And we will talk about that when we get there, because putting your self-worth in the validation of others will never leave you happy.
Yeah.
Because other people will make choices that are completely outside your control.
Yeah.
Anyway, so she gets home with the number, puts the drive in her TV, and the ad is ominous but vague for the substance.
Paige, like I said in Marketing Corner, you know that famous segment we do every episode?
Yes.
This is how you get rich people to buy your way overpriced shit. You like, it's got to be handed around word of mouth. It's got to be super exclusive. And to get it, there has to be an element of like perceived danger.
Yeah.
And then, man, you've got that person. They're going to buy whatever you have them buy because they've got disposable income and they're probably not super bright.
Yeah. And you've convinced them that it could be a better you.
Yeah.
Better version. Better everything.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I think that so many people would choose to try the substance. I think that it would sell so easily in the beginning.
Yeah. Well, I think for me, it's the perfect balance. Don't forget, you're one. Switch back. Like when I'm watching it, I'm just like, Now, I do think, did you think about this? Knowing that you are also a nerd about plays and shit, did you see this as in some ways a modernized version of the Portrait of Dorian Gray?
So on some level it is, but Demi Moore's character is the portrait, right?
Exactly, yes.
Yes. So yes, I do. I wonder if that is where the writer-director sort of drew inspiration to start this writing process. This movie, I don't feel like rips from that at all. I think maybe pays homage to it, but man, I think it does. I think it elevates it and makes it mean something completely different than what Dorian Gray is. But yeah, I can see the similarity.
I don't see it as copying. That's kind of not what I was trying to get at. More of like this concept of if you could exist outside the trappings of aging and time and life in general, what would that look like modern day? And I feel like this is kind of what we get. So, but as someone who also loves Dorian Gray, like, I was
Oscar Wilde is my favorite, like, UK writer. Like, I love Oscar Wilde. I hate that the UK killed him.
Yeah. Based on this ad, would you try the substance?
Hell no. Are you serious? No, not a chance in hell. No. It looks like the Reanimator serum. Like, I've seen enough horror movies to know you don't put that shit inside you.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I also, anything this permanent, I am nervous about, right?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I support people doing whatever they want to do to their bodies because it is their choice. I just hope that they are always making that choice for themselves and not for others. But there are many things that I'm like, I shy away from because of the permanence of them. And this, to me, if I had seen this ad, I would have been like, no, no. But she throws it in the trash initially. She's like, no. And she goes to get drinks alone, which I think is very notable. She could have had drinks with Fred. She wasn't busy.
Yeah.
But she chose to be alone.
I also think she's got a lot to process. Like, after the few days she's had, I'd want a day where I could just not, have to be what anyone else wants me to be.
Yes. Yeah. She comes home. She throws it all up, unfortunately, suggesting that there are some potential disorders at play, or she's just that drunk.
Yeah.
Possible.
I honestly got the vibe that she just drank a lot.
Yeah. It could go either way. I mean, for 4 martinis would put me down.
Yeah.
That's for sure.
Yeah, same.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying you're wrong about like the body image stuff because we don't see her eat either. It's not like she's throwing up food.
Not until she
Is freed from the societal bonds that she has been forced to live under. Yeah, Paige, I think this movie is saying a lot. And that's definitely one of the things. And the Sue's disgust at her.
Yes,
Like
at the food.
just made me so mad.
How dare she eat at all?
Yeah.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yep. But she goes through all her awards and finds this snow globe and throws it at the giant picture of her. She then digs the substance flash drive out of the trash and calls.
Yeah.
They give her an address and they tell her that she'll get more instructions later. Now, this scene, I think, is one of those pieces where it's like, this goes to the self-worth metaphors here of like, she has like an Emmy and a like screen act. She's got all these awards. And it's like, you can't even look back at this and say, I did cool shit.
Paige, 100%. This is the thing in the movie I saw in myself the most.
Same, so much.
And that was like, man, I have come pretty far from where I grew up.
Sure.
And I am still like, man, if I could just like get that promotion.
Right.
Or man, if we could just grow the podcast a little bit more. Like, and I do work on it in therapy, but like one of the things I have to be very present for is like, man, I'm at a pretty good spot in my life.
Yeah.
And I am very lucky to be where I am. And I feel very grateful for it all. And it's nice to acknowledge that. It's nice to be at a place where I can acknowledge that. But I also should acknowledge it. Like I've worked hard to get here and it's great that I'm here now. But
yeah,
I'm always reaching for the next rung in the ladder and I'm never focusing on that.
right. Yeah. And I think there's an extra layer of it too, of like, I think women are taught to not be confident in that way, to not brag about things they've done because it's unattractive. And so I think sometimes it is difficult to remember that, yes, you have done cool shit. And like, there's a reason you are where you are and you worked very hard to be there. And that I think is lost on her in this moment of despair, which is why you should never order injectables drunk.
You know what? If I learned anything, it's that. I feel like that's the biggest lesson I learned watching this movie. That, and if you're supposed to inject something into your body, definitely ask for more instructions than like what IKEA would give you.
Put Flern on side. The syringe is missing. Yeah, no, for sure.
Why do I have 3 syringes that don't even fit the needle they gave me? Yeah, like what are we doing, guys?
Spark something uncommon this holiday with just the right gift from Uncommon Goods. Look, I got a lot of people to buy for. I got a lot of family members. And I want their gifts to be tailored to them. I'm not buying everyone the same Snuggie this year. I'm buying people stuff that is unique to their interests. It's busy, and Uncommon Goods makes it less stressful to find those unique gifts with incredible hand-picked gifts for everyone on your list, all in one spot. These are gifts that spark joy, wonder, delight, and exclamations of, that's exactly what I wanted. Oh my God, how did you know? Are you psychic? Now I'm worried. Can you hear my thoughts? They scour the globe for original, handmade, and absolutely remarkable things. And somehow they know exactly the right gift for every person you know. Do you like tea? I do. How about a green herbal tea kit that lets you try a bunch of different teas? Or an artisan macaron sampler set if you want to feel fancy and fresh. When you shop at Uncommon Goods, you're supporting artists and small independent businesses. Many of their products are handcrafted and made in small batches. So shop now because they might run out. It's a limited time offer.
So, to get 15% off your next gift, go to uncommongoods.com/horrorvirgin. That's uncommongoods.com/horrorvirgin for 15% off. Don't miss out on this limited time offer. Uncommon Goods. We're all out of the ordinary.
It's fall, which means days are shorter, but it's not like you have less stuff to do. You're busy, so power through your busy days with Factor's no prep, no mess meals. From breakfast to dinner, lunch, snacks, anything in between, Factor has easy, nutritious options to keep you fueled and feeling your best. Just because the days are short and it gets dark early doesn't mean that you gotta go down early. Whether you like routine or you enjoy mixing it up, Factor has you covered with 35 delicious meals every week. That's potentially like 5 different meals a day because they're 7 days a week. I'm good at math. Anyway, there's over 60 additional convenience options like snacks or smoothies or little pressed juices, and they are all delicious. Don't let shorter days slow you down. Stay energized with America's #1 ready-to-eat meal delivery service. Find guilt-free comfort foods like home-style chicken and gravy and loaded mashed potato and pork chops. That's one of Jake and I's favorites. It slaps. It has no right tasting that good. Plus, feel-good vegan options like sweet potato and chickpea curry, also super delicious. And globally inspired flavors like Peruvian shrimp and red pepper cauli grits. Jake likes the cauli grits because he's a cauliflower boy, and he says they are delicious. But stay on your A game with quality ingredients that you can trust and quality you can taste in every one of Factor's fresh, never frozen meals. So head to factormeals.com/horrorvirgin50 and use the code horrorvirgin50 to get 50% off your first box and 20% off your next month. That's code horrorvirgin50 at factormeals.com/horrorvirgin50 to get 50% off your first box plus 20% off your next month while your subscription is active. Anyway, she gets up the next day. She takes a shower. She's taking Alka-Seltzer. We see her maid in the background, which I think we only see the one time.
Paige.
But is
how dare you? Yeah.
a perfect, like, the idea that she is so wrapped up in this. It's like, there's another woman right there who has equal worth to you that you barely register. She's not even there to you, let alone society.
She's pretty much out of focus literally the entire
Yes.
time she's on screen.
Yes.
Yeah, I definitely think this movie's saying something with it.
A lot.
Like, this movie's saying a lot. Yeah.
It's a lot. So she sees in the newspaper, which I do think is an interesting stylistic touch because this would definitely be an email, but she sees in the newspaper that there's a casting call for 18 to 30 only, and it's for her old job.
Yeah.
And she's mad, throws it in the trash. But then she also gets an envelope that gives her a little key card that says 503. She goes to the address they gave her the night before. It's a nondescript door that doesn't even open all the way.
I love that she had to like
She has to
duck,
duck
under it. Yeah.
And to the point where it's almost like it's asking you, how bad do you want this? This alley is gross. It's dangerous. You don't know what's behind this door. You don't know if you can trust any of these people. How bad do you want this?
Paige, when you say you don't know if you can trust these people, what people?
Exactly. There aren't any.
Exactly. And I love that they do it this way. It is literally like a disembodied voice on the phone. Like,
Well, it's the beauty secret that no one wants to admit they have. And it's
yeah.
just coming in the mail with no oversight, no one paying attention to your health doing it. It's just black market boxes for you to inject stuff into you so that other people can approve of you.
Yeah.
Just saying.
Yeah.
Just saying. But she crawls in. She goes and it's just a bank of like post office boxes, like cubbies. And she swipes in. She gets her box. She comes home. And it takes us through kind of the steps of what needs to happen. There's an activator and a whole injection kit. It's like single use and it says discard after use. We'll find out why later.
Paige, can I ask you an honest question about when she first opened the box?
Yes.
And you see it's like 1 on the top.
Right.
At first, were you like, oh, she's about to cut a hole in that box?
No.
Okay.
Yeah, because that would be step 1.
That's
Cut a
step
hole
1,
in the
baby.
box.
Right?
Step 2, put your junk in that box. Step 3,
Yeah.
make her open the box.
And that's the way you substance.
Yeah, she didn't invite Fred over, so there was no unwrapping of the box.
I secretly wanted her, after she lost a little bit of the finger, it went like a little crypt keepery.
Uh-huh.
I wanted her, when she switched back to Demi Moore, to like borrow from Sue.
I did
to
too.
spend more time with that guy.
Until they just ended up back at Demi Moore's original age.
That's exactly what I wanted to happen. And, you know, it ends with her being like, you know what? Fuck society.
You're right. I'm fine.
Yeah, exactly. It doesn't go that way, but
No.
I would have
it
loved
don't.
that for her.
Yeah. And I do want to be clear, as I was talking about getting injectables in the mail, if you're like working with a doctor and stuff, like that's not meant for you. I'm talking about the people who are like lying to get medication they don't actually need and being reckless with their health in that way.
Yeah. Which, okay, guys do this too.
Yep.
And it's like the HGH testosterone
Yep.
dudes, like the Joe Rogan dudes of it all. Like the ones who's like, they like have like very low body fat, but their organs are swelled so much that their stomachs are like puffy and like,
Yes.
yeah.
Yes.
Like, it's because they're taking things that they probably shouldn't be taking. I mean, I'm not their doctor and I have no idea, but like bodies don't do that naturally from what I understand.
I mean, sometimes you get a little spare tire and it can happen for a bunch of reasons.
It's not spare tire. It's a very specific look.
It's like a square.
Yeah, it's like they have 8% body fat, but they have like a pot belly and you can see like a liver.
Yeah.
You're like, bro, what's going on with
That's
you?
not an ab.
Yeah. You have a 9-pack, but one is a liver.
It's because society is insisting on the 9-pack.
I know,
And
Paige.
it affects y'all too.
Yes. Listen, this is not me saying, white guys have it hard too, but like, and I think this movie even says on a smaller level, guys deal with this because they do sexualize guys very seldom, but a few times. And I do agree. I think it's about equivalence to what we see in the movie. It's way a bigger issue for women than it is for men.
Mm-hmm. Anyway, she gets back to the house and it does have IKEA-like directions.
Yeah.
And it's got the activator where she's supposed to inject herself. Now, as someone who has to inject themselves on the regular, thank God I don't have to do it into veins. That's terrifying.
Give me a phlebotomist. Like, I can't do that.
I know. And here, I will say though, because they switched my Dupixent to pens. And so you just like into your stomach like you've got the cure in a Mission Impossible movie, which is fun. But honestly, when I had syringes, I felt like they hurt less.
Than the
pen, yeah.
Interesting. Okay. I honestly...
The needles were thinner.
Huh. I've never used a pen like that, so I don't know. That's interesting. I hate needles, though. Like, I give blood all the time, and I cannot watch them do it. I've given blood 40 times or something like that, and I still can't look at them stick my arm. I hate needles so much.
Personally, very desensitized to needles, but I think it's just from repeated exposure, like so much exposure to them.
You'd think that I would have gotten over it too, but I have not.
Some people never do. It's fine.
Yeah.
Some people don't. Some people are like me and pretend that it's like the antidote and have a good time with it. But like, whatever.
I mean, I'm still like reeling from it's like you have the cure in a Mission Impossible movie.
I picture it like, do you remember in Mission Impossible 2 when they have to give Tandy Newton the antidote?
Paige, you mean the Mission Impossible where he goes from having a street motorcycle to a beach motorcycle and no one's supposed to notice the huge difference there? Anyway, yeah, I've seen that movie. It's perfect. No notes. Thank you, John Woo.
Yeah, it's like that green shit that they're just like, that's what I pretend I knew. I don't know. Have fun with it. Have fun with your injectables as long as you're taking them safely and a doctor knows about it.
And honestly, if you're taking injectables, whether it's Ozempic or whatever, make sure you have your flares so that you can reenact the end of The Rock.
That's the other movie I think of when I do it too.
Yeah.
Where I'm just like, winners fuck the prom queen.
Love it. Yes, absolutely.
Just inject safely. Talk to your doctors.
Oh, I definitely think, I don't know that Ozempic was one of the things that skewed this towards being something in the script that was injectable, but it really works with that.
I think it's both. I think because obviously Botox has been around forever, right?
Botox, filler, all of that also injectable. Right. I agree.
And I would say Botox and filler seem more likely to me, because they are more. There are uses for Botox that are not purely cosmetic, but by and large, those are cosmetic drugs. With Ozempic, there are actual reasons to take it. Like, it's an actual...
I mean, doctors prescribe it.
Yes.
Yeah.
There are some people who need to take it for things that they've got. And some people will abuse it who maybe don't need it. And it can actually very badly damage your body if you do that. Or some people feel peer pressure and will use it, even though it has not been prescribed to them, to try and be like everyone else. Again, if you and your doctor have talked through the side effects and are working together on it, vaya con Dios. Do whatever you're going to do.
I was going to say that because this movie does really drive home the metaphor that everything has a cost.
Everything has a cost. And again, if you may be taking that medication for a reason, hey, that's why, right? And for people to try and get it who don't necessarily have the same reason, sometimes it makes it hard for you to get it. So just if you're taking injectables, talk to doctors and professionals to do so, and make sure you're doing it for the right reasons,
Yeah.
that it's for you, regardless of what your reason is, that it's your reason and it's not for other people.
It's not because Dennis Quaid doing his best Will Arnett impression wants you to lose a little bit of weight or smile more or whatever.
At the end of the day, you are the only one who has to live in your body, period. So that means no one else's choices should affect how you are going to live in your body. It's yours. And I mean that across the whole gamut of bodily autonomy.
I know. That's why living right now is very frustrating.
Sure.
It's a hard time to be a woman in America.
It's a hard time to be anybody in America, but also
True.
you have to choose.
Yeah.
So like whatever you're choosing, just make sure it's for you because you're the only one who has to feel it. And that's real.
Yeah.
So like there are so many people who are like killing themselves to be an ideal for someone else when it's not even what they really want. What is your happiest you? We asked somebody in an interview at day work the other day where we have a question of like, what's something you're really proud of? And this person was talking about their thing. And then they were like, I'm my happiest. No, I'm my favorite me.
Yeah.
When I XYZ.
love it.
And
Yeah.
just that change of the phrase, I was like, yes, bitch.
Yeah.
And we hired that girl.
Yeah, you hire that lady.
We hired that lady.
Yeah.
She was great. But that what is your favorite you? And the key word there is your favorite.
Yeah.
Nobody else's. Anyway, yeah, this movie's got a blood cannon at the end. We'll get to it. So she ties off and she injects. And as she's doing this, she's pulling the other things out of the kit. So there's a food matrix, food for her and food for the other self. And I think it's very, very purposeful that it is just bland food in a tube. There is no enjoyment. There is no what's even in it. It is purely perfunctory. It is a necessary neutral within this whole system. And like that I felt was because when she eventually eats, because the implication is when you don't have to eat. You just plug this thing in.
Yeah.
And then when Sue gets mad at her for eating on her off days, I was like, yes. This is all part of it.
Yeah, it is. Everything is intentional.
There's a stabilizer. You have to stabilize once a day. We'll find out what that means in just a second. It's pretty gross. And then you have to switch every 7 days, no exception. And it says that a million different places.
It's very clear what the rules are.
Very clear what the rules are. And then it says, remember, you are one. Which is, again, remember that the choices you make about your body for other people only affect you. You are one.
Yeah.
You choose. So we get to see Demi Moore completely nude in a very non-sexual context. And I appreciate that. And it says, you are the matrix. Everything comes from you and is you. This is simply a better version of yourself. But again, better version as determined by who for who, right?
Yeah, exactly.
You are the matrix. You are the one that they plug in and plug out of, like the Matrix. Anyways, she injects, the room warps, she goes down.
Yeah.
And we see a American Werewolf in London level horror show happening along her spine.
It is gross. This scene was rough.
It's real rough. We see her eye break into two pupils.
Okay, that shit was cool. Like the eye stuff.
That was cool as fuck.
Very cool. Everything else really grossed me out.
Really gross. But then it something gremlins out of her back. And we see like an elbow.
That is exactly what it is. It's Danny DeVito, but
yes,
it's exactly that.
Right. Breaks out of her back. And at this point, I looked at how long we had been watching the movie because I was like, this movie already has a million things in it. Like, how long is... And we were at 28 minutes.
I know.
For
man.
all of you screenwriting students in the audience, that is the perfect act break for Act 1. You could not cut it tighter. Like, that is exactly... I was like, holy shit. But then was like, why is this long? We'll find out.
It's the fourth act.
It's the fourth act. We cut to a shot of a flaming heart, which I do think is because a heart is kind of mirror images, because we will see something crawl up from the floor of the bathroom while Demi Moore is laying there with her back all open.
Ugh.
And Margaret Qualley goes to the mirror and it's young her with what society would tell you is a perfect body.
Yes, and they are showing all of it.
All of it. But the shift in the visuals is markedly different.
Oh, so different. It's so male gazy where the rest of this movie has not been. This is the first real, like, sexually exploitative shot happens.
Well, and we'll get to the next, because they really amp it up in just a couple scenes in a way that is so targeted that I loved. But yes, suddenly the way we were seeing Demi Moore, which I do think was a very compassionate gaze. It's a gaze that she's not even giving herself, but the movie is giving her. And now it is the male gaze.
Yes.
Specifically. And the contrast of the two is incredible. But she instantly barfs and it's neon.
It's the serum or whatever.
Yeah, it's the super soldier serum.
Yeah.
And she bends down and basically stitches Demi Moore's back.
Oh, and man, they show like all of it and it was real gross. Like this was probably the most I wanted to look away from the screen.
This one is rough, but I also felt like this is where one of their metaphors is the strongest, because as she's stitching her up, she's like, ugh, like she's grossed out by it. And it's like, the women who came before you gave you everything and you're taking it for granted because it's a little gross.
Yeah.
Like, wild. But she plugs her into the food. She sits with her while she's kind of eating. And at this point, I was like, the camera work is incredible. And she gets up to shower. I don't know if you noticed that every time Demi Moore goes in to shower, the shower gets smaller.
I did notice that, yeah.
And at one point, it doesn't have a door.
Yeah.
Like, wild.
It's like the walls closing in on her.
Mm-hmm,
that's what I got from that, yeah.
Yes. But she kind of lays down on the floor and sleeps next to her. She gets up the next day and she's hearing what sounds like mic feedback and she's bleeding out of her nose.
Yeah.
And she sees one of the packets that says stabilize every day. And there's a giant needle because essentially what she needs to do to stabilize is to spinal tap Demi Moore and then inject Demi Moore's spinal fluid into herself.
Yep.
And boy, is it brutal and gross and a little Cronenbergian kind of existenzy. But she injects herself and she is the epitome of societal beauty. She goes out into the living room. She sees that newspaper with the casting call and she's gonna fucking go.
And she's like, you know who can get my old job back? Me. The person who did my job for like 30 years.
Yeah, because she was never the problem.
Of course not. Yeah.
Right? But so she goes, she gets new workout wear. It looks suspiciously like Kim Kardashian's Skims bathing suits. And I'm not here criticizing Skims bathing suits. They did come in a wide range of sizes. Good for them. They looked good on almost everybody. And they were very cool looking. If you have one, good for you. But I did think that it was very notable that that's how they chose to show this. And that's how they chose to dress her. But she goes to the audition. And we see the girl before her. And they're just like, she was a great dancer, but too bad she didn't have boobs in the middle of her face. Her nose is weird. Like they're nitpicking her apart, even though she is good enough to do the job.
They are like so gross about it, though. They're like, it's too bad those huge tits weren't on her face instead of that gross nose or whatever. You're like, good God.
Oh, yeah.
You're terrible.
Terrible. And then we see Sue's, well, and we don't know she's Sue yet. She will name herself in this scene.
Yeah.
But she is shot entirely in the male gaze. To the point we're getting crotch shots.
Oh, yeah.
Like it is egregious. And they immediately are like, what a gorgeous little angel. You're hired. They're all so nice to her.
It's nice to see everything where it's supposed to be.
Right.
Insane.
Because we have dictated where it's supposed to be.
Insane, Paige.
And they go in to offer her the job and they're like, we'll have the assistant. What's her name? And she's like, Isabella, because she's standing right there and has been there the entire time. And they view her as invisible.
He doesn't even really ask her. He just like snaps at her.
Yes.
And then eventually when Isabella, because she's a person in the world, doesn't respond to a snap because she can't read minds, like she's like, oh, me? Oh, yeah, no, it's Isabella. He's like, who has time to say 3 syllables? I'm just going to call you Cindy because that's 2. It's better, right?
Right.
And then just like calls her Cindy in that moment to a third party.
Yes. Yeah. And this is the point at which she's like, I have to work every other week because of my grandma, you know, or whatever. And I think it's really interesting that they're like, we'll make it work for you. We'll work around it. As opposed to Demi Moore, who had shown up every day for God knows how long. And then they were just like, doesn't matter. You're old. Bye.
Yeah. I think this goes to show, I think this sort of shows the privilege of pretty people.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. We get a photo shoot. She's got a billboard outside the window. And then she kind of falls into bed. Meanwhile, she finally, and this is a couple days later, decides to put a pillow under Demi Moore's head as she's been laying on the bathroom floor for days.
I mean, honestly, like, that's what you're gonna do, though. Like, let them sleep where they fall, right?
Sure, but get her a blanket or a pillow.
I know. I thought it was insane that she left her naked on the bathroom floor. Like, what is this, a Shaggy song?
Yeah.
Like, what are we doing?
Yes. But she kind of starts to feel it as she gets close to day 7 because you only have so much of the stabilizer.
Right.
The food matrix is empty. And so she lays down next to her and they switch via basically blood transfusion. And we see like a dark road and a motorcycle because Demi Moore has like nightmares every time the switch happens.
Yeah.
And we get just flashes of them. But she gets up, she makes hella eggs. She kind of showers, she hooks up the food for the other self, and she goes out into the hallway. She goes to her old job. All of her pictures are down. And Dennis Quaid is just like, here's a box of your shit and this thing my wife likes. All right, see ya, bye.
I love how long the hallway is that he has to walk down to her and then away from her.
Yes.
Because it like forces you as the viewer to sit longer in the moment of what just happened than the actual exchange.
Yep.
Because what he's saying is like on the surface, very nice. Like, hey, I collected all your shit. Get the fuck out. You're old. But like, he's saying it like, oh, we were all looking to have a drink with you. Anyway, I gotta run. Here's all your stuff. And I brought you a present because my wife likes to cook French food. Is like, he like tells her what it is immediately.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's terrible. I feel bad for her.
Well, I also love that he's like, God, I love my wife. We have heard him say nothing but like objectifying bullshit the entire time.
I assumed his wife was 23 and 2 years away from getting divorced.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
Or this was his first wife and he can't divorce her because there was no prenup. But we see Demi Moore go home and she's marking off the days where it's Sue versus her on the calendar. She's kind of just sitting at home, hanging out.
Because she's responsible. She's lived a life. And like, she knows how to make a plan to make this work, you know?
Is it responsible or is it putting yourself on the sidelines so other people can have happiness?
Oh, Paige, I think that there's multiple layers to this. But yes, I do think that the larger layer is she is like fully checking out of her life and turning it over to the young version of herself.
Yep.
And she's like, you know what? 2 weeks out of the month young is better than 4 weeks out of the month old. Let's do it. I'll just live those 2 weeks and I'll watch TV and veg out the rest of the time. It's real sad.
It's real sad, but it's also because she ascribes more worth to the young version of her than the old version. She believes that young version deserves intrinsically to have a cool, full life and doesn't believe the same of herself. Like, for as much as, like, every time they said on the phone, respect the balance, I was like, she's not understanding what they're saying.
Of course, yeah.
Because what they're truly saying is, you also have to live for those weeks. You have to understand that you also deserve to have a cool, exciting life of your own making, and you are ceding all of the authority and control of your life to someone else. And in the context of the movie, you're giving that control to society to tell you when you're worthy, as opposed to just knowing that you are. But yeah. Anyway, she veges out for a full week. And to the point where she goes to check how much food Sue has left, and it's 2 days, and she's like, where she's just like, I can't wait to get back to being young and amazing.
And this made me think that, like, okay, so she definitely remembers what it's like being Sue, having been Sue for a week.
Right.
But later in the movie, it sort of feels like there is sort of a disconnect the further down the rabbit hole she goes.
Yeah.
That as, like, Demi Moore does not really remember what it was like to be Sue.
Right. Well, I also think it's maybe the longer she's under, like after 7 days, maybe that memory.
Yeah.
Yeah. 'Cause it's Sue's turn and we see her shooting her first episode, and it is basically a 1980s Diet Coke commercial. And like Diet Coke prominently featured, sweating on the can.
I think it's the shots they used in the Cindy Crawford one. It's just at this like workout studio and not the construction site they shot it on initially, right? But it's like the same shots. So yeah, you get like the sweating of the Coke can and like the really close up on her lips as she drinks it and the literal sound, right? You get all of that.
Here's an interesting note. The Cindy Crawford one, Diet Pepsi.
Ooh.
However,
I didn't realize she was gross.
I know. I think they just gave her money. Same with Britney Spears and Cardi B and everybody. But Diet Coke is the ubiquitous one.
Yeah.
That's the one that it has all of us girlies in a chokehold. I'm guilty too. I'm not some perfect lady that lives completely outside the system. I just try my best to divest myself from a lot of this chatter around body image, but I'm a work in progress, as we all are. And like, guilty. So
Paige, I had 2 Diet Cokes today. Like, yeah, I drink Diet Coke all the time.
2, that's cute.
Okay, so can I tell you why I only had 2?
Why?
Because I had 4 Diet Dr. Peppers today.
Okay, see, now this is fun because I have had 5 Diet Cokes and 1 Diet Dr. Pepper today.
Paige,
Yes.
we're gonna die at 50. Like we have so much aspartame in our system.
But maybe it'll just preserve us, like we're in jars.
I don't think any study has shown that.
I don't know. I figure I don't smoke and I don't do drugs and I don't drink, and so let me fucking have this and cheese.
Paige, you can have it. I ain't taking nothing from you.
I choose it for me, okay? I choose it because I deliberately think it tastes better, and if regular Coke tasted better, I'd probably be drinking that.
I 100% agree with that probably wrong take.
Right?
Yes.
I don't think Coke is any better for you. All of this is bad, but I'm picking it based on taste. The diet may as well not be on the can. It is just what the taste is that I need. It's an addiction. Anyway,
Yeah.
Sue looks at the depressed couch and some of the TV, and she's like, oh, she did nothing with that week. So she goes and knocks down the walls and builds like a room behind the bathroom, which seems impossible in this amount of time, but I'm not going to question it. The metaphor stands.
Paige, you just have to understand that her apartment does not exist in a real space.
Right.
Because she lives in an apartment building where she has a neighbor literally across the hallway from her, but her apartment also has very long, curved, narrow hallways.
Yes.
That
yes.
seemingly go on for like 100 feet before they get to a room.
Yeah.
Like that would be so much wasted space. So like you just have to understand everything that exists in this movie exists to serve the metaphor.
So I have a weird film student belief that the apartment is more representative of just their internal being than an actual place.
I think that holds true for this movie and The Room.
Well, yeah, but we're gonna have to talk about that another time. But like when they're changing the like photos
Yes.
in the apartment, it's
Yeah.
like, who's in control? Who are you letting control this space?
Yeah, and later, I mean, we're probably going to get to it pretty soon, but when like Demi Moore throws the eggs at the wall and then turns those
Love
newspaper into papier-mâché windows, like
Love it.
you definitely see that.
Yep.
You definitely see her fighting back, sort of.
Yeah. But so as she's doing construction, as Sue is doing construction, the neighbor from across the way comes over and is like, bitch, come on. And then once he sees that it's Margaret Qualley, he's like, just kidding. You're gorgeous. Do you want to use my hammer? I mean, hammer don't hurt him. What's up?
It's grosser than that. He's like,
Yes.
just keep in mind, I know you're doing a lot of construction over there. I'm like super handy. By the way,
Very
they're
handy.
shooting him in this shot like he's 5'2" and she's 6'1".
Mm-hmm.
So like him being like, I got a big sack of tools and a huge hammer. And then him trying to play that off like it was a joke because it did not land.
No.
Like, I've seen so many guys do that exactly. Like, say something that's like on the line perverted.
Right.
And then like try and laugh it off like it was a joke.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, oh, damn.
I'm very familiar.
Yeah, I'm sure women see this all the time in bars or whatever.
The one I get all the time is like, someone hits on you and then like here's the thing, it usually happens when people are hitting on you, and then if you don't respond in the way they want,
They then attack you.
they then kind of go off, right? They then attack you. So for me, it's like, I don't know, maybe we could go out sometime. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm married. Well, fuck you, you fat bitch. I wasn't hitting on you anyway. Like that. And it's like, yeah. But I did think it was interesting that they shot him from a low angle, and whenever they want men to look weak in this movie, they shoot them from above. And I think that is a direct correlation to a sensitivity and a, I guess, anxiety that many men have about their height. And I think the movie is recognizing that as, hey, society's doing this to you too.
Oh, yeah. And
This is one of those areas.
And yo, that's actually one of the areas that like guys do get held to like a height thing.
Sure.
As a almost short king. Yeah.
Look, as someone who dated a guy who was 5'4", I'm the hero here. I'm kidding. That was a gross thing to say, but it is true. He was very cute.
I've never cared about height. I've dated a woman who, like, she was exactly my height, but she always wore heels, and I loved it. I didn't care. Like, whatever. It has nothing to do with me. Like, Natalie's shorter than me, and I love that too. It's great. I don't care.
I'm just here for the riz. Anyway, so she has 2 days left, and she pulls Demi Moore into the new hidey hole she has built.
Yeah.
And takes down her photos, moves all the furniture. She basically takes over the space.
She moves in, man.
Yeah. We cut to her shooting again, and it is male gaze AF. Now, did you notice that one of her dancers is a queer-coded mask-passing person? Because it is very much, there's a couple different places where I think it is also being like, hey, gay guys also hold each other to these kinds of standards sometimes. And it's prominent in that community as well. So there's one in this, and then the nurse that hands her the substance as well seems very queer-coded also.
Yes, absolutely.
And so I feel like the movie's trying to catch everybody in its net of like, that's not just, it's everybody. It's all of us. It's all of society.
It literally is society.
Yes.
Yeah, it's literally everybody.
Literally everybody. And she ends her taping with the catchphrase that her predecessor, Demi Moore, used to use. In the meantime, take care of yourself. And then she blows a kiss. And no one notices or cares that she has literally taken from the person before her and passed it off as her own. No one argues for Demi Moore in this moment. So, yeah. But we see the hallway and we get kind of a replay of the exact shots that Demi Moore went through earlier on the day she got fired, except now the hallway has one photo and it is her. It is her building her
legacy.
Empire.
Yeah.
Yes.
It is what we saw them tear down of Demi Moore's at the beginning of this movie.
Yep. We see her go home, put on an amazing black jumpsuit and some knee-high Louboutins.
Yeah.
And she pops into the bathroom and is like, I'm going to be out late, so just wait for me. I'll be back.
Don't eat too much.
Don't eat too fast is what she says.
Yeah, that's what it is.
Don't eat too fast because she is slowly dribbling that food. And Margaret Qualley, Sue, then drives away with her friends. She comes home just as Demi Moore is kind of running out of food, but she doesn't go to feed her. She brought a boy back. And they are about to bang it out.
They definitely go to Pound Town, Paige. Yeah, they haven't yet because she does have to steal a little bit of that sweet, sweet spinal juice.
Yes, and we don't see them go to Pound Town because what we do see, she steals the spinal fluid and then goes out. He unzips the back of her jumpsuit and a whole bunch of blood and guts fall out because it is what? Demi Moore's nightmare. Ugh. But she does find, as she gets up for the switch, that Margaret Qualley, Sue, did take extra time. And because of that, one of Demi Moore's fingers is now a Spirit Halloween witch finger.
It does look very Spirit Halloween. You're right.
Yep.
I was calling it Crypt Keeper finger because it looks kind of like that too. It's just like half dead.
You know, the plastic ones you stick your finger into, it looks like that.
Exactly. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And what we learn in this movie is you can't wash that off.
You can't wash it off at all. Once you got it, you got it. Just like in Deadstream where he gets the finger. But she finds a note from Troy, the guy from the night before, and he left his motorcycle helmet there because he was too drunk to take the bike home.
Yeah.
So she checks the rest of her body. It's just her finger. But she calls and is like, hey, there's been a misuse. I think there was a few extra hours used and something happened. There was a side effect, or I think she calls it an alteration. And instead of saying, am I okay? She says, I'm looking for the procedure to undo it.
Right.
So like, she's like, I'll do whatever you need to fix it. I just want to fix it.
Yeah, I've got plenty of money. How do we fix this? It's sort of the vibe.
Right.
Yeah.
And they're like, whatever is used on one side is lost on the other, and there is no going back, which does imply that if she potentially had done the same to Margaret Qualley.
That's what I thought she was going to do at first. Yeah.
I thought so too. And I am glad it doesn't go that way. But I do think that what we find out later is because Margaret Qualley is not the Matrix, the stabilizer doesn't necessarily, so I don't know.
It goes haywire. You're right.
It goes haywire.
In like a amazing way. I love it. But yeah.
But also, I feel like going the other way and pulling from the younger person would be you taking back your freedom from the system.
Exactly.
And embracing being who you are.
Exactly.
And that's why she doesn't do it. And they say the balance must be maintained. She could have taken it back. She wouldn't have lost the finger. She would have had to be who she was, but she could take that time back.
Would have been great. But then the movie wouldn't have been a cautionary tale. It would have had like an uplifting ending.
Right.
And I don't think because this is the horror genre, it would have played as well.
It uplifted me today. Whether that was the intent or not, indeed it did. Anyway, so they tell her, they're like, respect the balance. And she is like frustrated, hangs up, tosses the helmet into the hallway, vacuums, cleans the house. But whose TV show is on? It's Sue.
Pump it up, baby.
Pump it up. Who is at the door but fucking Oliver from across the hallway, just being a real creep.
Yeah, just displaying every red flag he could find in his pocket.
Yes.
Like, it's just, he's so gross.
So gross. We see her take a shower. The shower again gets smaller. She goes to pick up the refill kit. She hears what she thinks is someone or something there, so she takes the box and runs. And she goes to what seems to be a restaurant that's mostly old people, but a young, pretty waitress. And she just orders a latte to kind of sit and process. And an old man across the aisle from her says, "It's long, isn't it?" And she says, "What are you talking about?" And he says, "Those 7 days." And you see his hand, and that's the birthmark of the nurse who told her about it the first time. And by the way, we are at a perfect act 2. If you're taking screenwriting notes, this is where it happens. And he says, "I'm just curious how things are going.
Yeah.
I did follow you. I recognized you. I wanted to know how you were doing." And he's like, "Each time you feel a little bit more lonely, huh?" And she says, "I'm fine." And he's like, "It gets harder every time to remember that you still deserve to exist."
Oh, like he says it so blatantly. And
So good.
she is, I think, living a little bit in denial and
Yes.
is not ready to hear what he is saying, but it is very like on the nose and it's perfect.
Well, and then what he says is, "Has she started yet? Eating away at you?"
Yeah.
And it's this idea of your idealized version of what we should be will eventually eat away at you until you die. But yes, perfect halfway break point.
Yeah.
This is your mid-act 2. Fantastic. On the way home, she bumps into Troy picking up his motorcycle, and he's a royal asshole to her.
Oh, he's terrible. Yeah.
He is terrible. And it is the dichotomy of seeing him with Sue the night before and then seeing him with Elizabeth now. And that this like, yeah, he is not kind. He objectively treats her badly. And just because she's older and he knows that he can.
It literally is because he has no sexual interest in a woman of like Demi Moore's age, perhaps, or just the way she looks. I don't know what it is, but like he perceives her as having no value.
No value at all.
And treats her as such. And it's terrible.
It's terrible. But here's where we get into, for me, this is the saddest part of the movie because she goes home. And I think it is initially as revenge because Troy treated her badly. She's like, fine, I'm going to fuck somebody that you don't like.
Yeah.
Basically.
I think so too, on some level.
And so she comes home, she calls Fred, they set up a date.
Yeah.
He is thrilled to go on that date. He's like shocked she called. He desperately wants to see her.
Yeah.
She dresses up. And the first thing is the gloves, where I was like, gloves, that's a look. But I was like, oh, the finger.
I kind of like the gloves. I'm not saying you got to wear gloves. I think she made it look great.
Yeah, I mean, it was a cool outfit.
Yes.
But so she goes to close the bathroom door that has the little room. She sees Sue. She adds more makeup.
Yeah.
She grabs her keys. She comes out. She looks at the billboard. She goes back in the bathroom to add more makeup. And I'm like, no. And then we start to see the clock turning and she's putting a scarf around her neck. She's going to be late. She's taking makeup off. She's putting more on. She can't go outside. She sees herself in the doorknob. And the whole time, not that other people's validation should speak to any of your self-worth, but the whole time I just kept thinking, he was thrilled to see her with no makeup.
Yeah.
The other day when he ran into her.
He was super into what she was and like is not expecting her to look like Sue.
No.
He wants her to look like she looks now. That's what he's expecting.
Yes, that's who he wants to go on a date with. This is like when I have encountered plus size people who are afraid to be naked in a sexual scenario. And I'm like, look, I love us and our dependence on shapewear. However, we're not fooling anybody that much. Like if it got to the point where y'all are going to have a romantic encounter, they're in it with you. Like that's what they signed up for.
They're here for this.
That's why they're there. They're here for this. Let them be here for this. Let you be your most comfortable, authentic you, because that's the you they wanted to begin with. That's why they're there. Don't tell people what they want or don't want before they get a chance to tell you. Because if she had asked him if she needed more makeup, he would have been like, no, I'm into you the way you are. Like, whatever she had chosen to present to him that night, he would have been into because he was into her.
Yeah.
Like
100%.
And that's, such a tough lesson.
And seeing her in the bathroom, like literally, like beating herself up.
Yes.
Literally beating herself up while trying to remove the makeup in just such like a violent way is heartbreaking.
And then not going on the date.
Oh, I know. When she smears the lipstick, you're like, oh, she's not going.
She's not going.
And then it just escalates so much from there in such a sad way. You can't help but be affected by it. And Demi Moore's performance is like insane in this movie. Like so great.
So good.
And this scene is like one of those scenes that you're like, God, this is great. This is a great movie, but it's hard to watch.
I don't know that this will get the credit it deserves come award season, but I feel similarly about this and Demi Moore in this as I do Toni Collette in Hereditary.
Yeah.
Where I'm like,
yeah, man.
This is a once in a lifetime performance. Like, this is incredible. But she doesn't go on the date. And there's a part of me that's like, you lost out on an experience with someone who was into you because of you. No one else did this. You were your own worst enemy in this moment. That's so hard to unlearn when society says you should be your worst enemy. And it's the collateral damage of making choices for other people and not for you.
Yeah.
But she opens her fridge, which is full of like a Thanksgiving turkey and then a slice of quiche that looked incredible and a grilled cheese sandwich. And I was like, what is this, my fridge? Like, girl, yes. And it implies she takes all of it, basically.
Yeah, she's like, you know what? I'm going to eat.
Which eat because you are hungry and that's what your body needs. Self-care. Eat what you want when you need to you're full. That there is no good or bad food. There's just moderation in making choices to suit your body.
Yeah.
So like, eat the turkey, girl, if that's what it takes. You're not going to eat a turkey every day. It's okay to sometimes eat a turkey.
You know what they say, though, Paige? Like, eat a turkey a day keeps the gobble away.
Yeah. And you don't want to worry about the gobble. I mean, he hides under beds for a reason. But we cut to, now it's back to Sue's week because she still gave it back to Sue. She still gave the power back to society.
And didn't she call before she gave it back? Like, I think I want to end it. Or did she not yet?
It's the next one.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
But we cut to the studio where Sue is doing an episode of Pump It Up and she thinks that something pops out of her butt.
Oh, God.
And she's having to try and push it back in.
Yeah.
And everyone on set is reviewing like her slow motion, fast motion butt with a wedgie.
They literally say, bring it up on the monitor. Let's go through it frame by frame. Which, the funny thing is, I thought back to the scene where they were doing the initial transformation or like split, if you will. And both of those actresses had to be naked on set probably for 2 or 3 days to film all of that.
Probably.
And
yes,
they would have had to capture shots where they had to go through it frame by frame.
Oh, yeah.
So like they were probably doing in this scene something they had to do earlier or later in the production schedule to shoot it. Just, I don't know. It was funny to me that I was like, oh, I bet this happens on set.
Well, it has happened very specifically, documented on camera, where on Baywatch, they used to have to adjust Pamela Anderson's suit for the exact right amount of wedgie.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And do it frame by frame as she would run on the beach. That's something that really happened.
That doesn't surprise me at all.
Like, we know it happened.
Yeah.
Right? And so it very much reminded me of that. But also, she excuses herself to her dressing room where she finds a lump and pushes it to her stomach where she then pulls it out of her belly button and it is an uneaten chicken leg.
Paige, when it goes from belly button to literal KFC reveal to like you see it's not a butthole, but like the belly button closing like a butthole. I was like, oh, yep. What is happening? This is insane. Oh, it's a nightmare. Okay.
It's a nightmare. But it is also, she pulls it from her thigh.
Yes.
So the idea of like, it goes straight to my thighs. Like that's where it literally,
Yeah.
And she's Sue. maybe Suzanne Summers, maybe the Thigh Master.
Oh, the layers page.
Layers. But she comes back to the apartment and she's like, she stayed up eating all night. And so she calls and is like, this balance isn't working. She waits 7 days. And they're like, hey, there is no she. You're one.
Yeah.
It's the two of you. You have to respect the balance too. She goes back to the studio and it seems like they're tearing it down. And she's like, Harvey wants you in his office. She's afraid she's going to get fired. But he's like, no, ratings are incredible. We want you to host the New Year's Eve show. It's going to be live. You can't go higher than that. That's incredible. It's in a few months. Are you in? And she's like, of course. And when we go back, we get a montage of her stealing time from Demi Moore, basically being like, well, you don't close the door on an opportunity. Like you of all people know. And she's abusing the power. And she's like, one more day and then a whole week off until it has been multiple weeks. And her port in the back where she's getting the stabilizer from is super infected.
Yeah.
And it very much looks like if you are a Cronenberg fan, it's where the Existence port is. So it's very...
It's so like, it's gross.
It's gross. But she does finally lay down and give her a week. But by the time Demi Moore wakes up, she has aged significantly, but in certain sections of her body. It doesn't go just all at once. It's like one leg and a part of a foot and like an arm. And when she wakes up, she's like, she didn't respect the balance. So she calls and she's like, she's stealing more and more time. And on the other line, they're like, well, you are the Matrix. You can put an end to this anytime you want. At any point, you can decide to stop this and live outside the system.
And she does say, do I get to go back to the way I looked before? And they're like, no.
Nope.
What has been used has been used. You can't go back.
Can't go back. But you could be right now.
Yeah.
You could be the way you are right now, but you would have to accept and live as you are right now. Do you want to stop? And she says, no, I would rather lose more time. I would rather it get worse than live like this in a body that I feel like has no worth.
Yeah, it's
brutal.
So brutal. Yeah.
Brutal. And so she then has her 7 days. She sees the note that says it changed my life. She's kind of sitting and watching TV, but she's all over. Sue is all over TV. She decides to finally open the present.
You sort of glossed over it, but that note, it changed my life. It's different the second time around.
Yeah, it does.
And man, I loved it. Because at first you're like, oh, it changed this guy's life. It's great. Let's do it.
Right.
And then this time you're like, fuck, it really changed your life. You know, like, oof.
It is brutal. And she like is struggling to get up because one of her legs is not functioning. She has aged considerably.
She practically has to break it.
Yeah.
Like, Jesus, it's so visceral. It's
real gross, but it's a book. She goes to open the present she got. It's a book on French cuisine, and it's just rage, where it's this idea of like, everyone wants to put me out to pasture and just be at home and cook and do nothing.
Yeah.
But also, I do think that this is intentional and that it is a nod to Julia Child, who was a very tall and unconventional looking woman who succeeded in a man's field by being herself. And usually that's the French cuisine book that people give to other people.
Interesting. Okay.
So, and that is just personal, bit of a nerd about it. But like, I thought it was very interesting that it was specifically French cuisine. She's credited as bringing French cuisine via cookbooks to America in a way that was digestible for most housewives.
The layers page.
The layers. But she then starts cooking literally everything in the book because she's like, fuck it, fine. Like, fine. If I'm just going to be trapped in here, if she's going to go out and be all the things I want to be, then fine. I'll just sit here and eat and do whatever. Like, if she's going to pretend like I don't exist, I guess I don't exist. I'm just going to do whatever.
Yeah.
And trashes the house.
Oh, and that's when she like throws the eggs at the wall and papier maches up the windows.
Yes.
And which is great because then she can't see that poster that whenever she is Demi Moore is like haunting her of like, this is what you could look like half of the time.
Right.
Right.
Well, and that's the tricky thing is it's like, you are one. That is what you look like half the time, technically, because you are the Matrix, because you weren't content with being the you that you could have been all of the time. Now you only get half as this and half as less than you had before.
Yeah.
Anyway, and she does do the like, tell them who your beauty secret is. It's me.
Oh yeah, when she's being interviewed on the TV show.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And at this point, Margaret Qualley gets up and is like, what the fuck happened in this? Like, okay, that's it. We're not going back. I can't go back. I'm not gonna. So she collects a bunch of jars and she just harvests as much stabilizing fluid as she can.
Every time that needle goes in, you're like, ugh. And it's like, it's repetitious. It's over and over and over again.
Bruised and blackened and like, yes. And at this point, I was like, how is there 45 minutes left of the movie? Oh, you ain't ready.
You ain't ready.
You ain't ready.
The carry of it all.
The carry of it all. Because she's got 3 months and she does not switch back. So Demi Moore is rapidly aging just on the floor of this room, unbeknownst to anyone. As she just continues to, she has a guy move in. She's just like charging up anytime she needs that fluid until she runs out and she tries to go inject into Demi Moore, but she can't get any out. It's like this gross black.
Yeah, the spinal tap has run dry.
Right. And she calls and is like, hey, it's 5:03. There's no more stabilizing fluid. And he's like, well, you've reached the end. And she's like, what do you mean? And he's like, you need to let it regenerate. You have to switch. And she's like, I can't switch. I have the New Year's Eve thing tomorrow. And he's like, no other option. And she basically passes out in the kitchen and crawls to the bathroom and switches.
Yeah.
But as she's doing it, the man, who we don't really get a name, is chasing her through the house, kind of like, hey, are you coming to bed? Like, what's going on?
Yeah, like, are you okay? Because she does like sort of fall and then sort of make her way to the bathroom. I'd be concerned too.
Right.
Like, I get it.
Well, and he does see some blood on the floor. He's like, oh, is it your period? Like, what's going on?
Yeah.
And now it's Demi Moore and she's like, get the fuck out.
Yeah.
Get out. But I do think this is very interesting because we get a shot of Demi Moore as an old and tons of body makeup, old butt, and then we see his hairy butt.
Paige, the cheek-to-cheek transition in this moment was one of my favorite moments in the movie.
I did love it, but I also thought it was very notable that it was a hairy butt because that is one of the few things that men will wax is their butts.
Oh, well, that guy didn't.
He did not, because he probably felt comfortable enough in society to not have to.
I mean, as a guy with a hairy butt, I felt seen, honestly. I was like, that's...
There you go.
Well, not as muscular, but yeah, that's what I'm rocking. Yeah.
It's a good butt.
Thank you, Paige. I appreciate that. I'm going to go ahead and assume you meant that about me, and I'm not going to listen to anything you say for the next 30 seconds.
Okay. Yeah. No, I've never seen yours, so I can't make a judgment. But this guy had a good butt.
Paige, you saw the guy in the movie, so I'll tell you, it looks nothing like that.
All right. But we finally get a reverse shot on Demi Moore in this bathroom, and she looks like the Six Flags man, the Vengabus man.
Oh my God. Yes, 100%. Yeah.
And you're just like, holy shit, like this escalated fast.
Oh yeah. And like later when they fight,
if
Demi Moore had been wearing a red and green long sleeve shirt, I'd have been like, that's Freddy. That's Freddy Krueger right there fighting, Sue.
Well, at this point she calls. And she's like, it's 5:03. I want to stop. And they're like, are you sure? And she's like, yes. And they're like, you can't go back. And she says, I want to fucking stop.
I love how definitive she says yes in this moment. Because in this moment, there is nothing that could dissuade her from doing what she's about to do. And that is kill Sue.
Yes.
And she's still in the moment, cannot finish it.
Yes.
Man, I was like, that's so on the nose. Like, it's not healthy for you to live like this.
Right.
But you do.
But you do.
And like we do, like society does. I don't mean that like you, I'm not attacking you as a person because I do. I have internalized misogyny within me. And I like don't even think about the stuff that I do sometimes, that just like upholds the stupid shit that this movie is pointing out. And I love it for that.
Yes. Well, and she pulls out her old photo almost as a way to be like, had I been content with this, I wouldn't be here.
Yeah.
She goes to get her final kit. She drags Margaret Qualley down into the living room with the great Thump Foley.
And has a lot of strength in that moment. Like, we go from like her struggling to walk around to being like Smeagol, sort of. Like, having a lot of strength and having an odd body shape. Like, that is what this is. It's crazy.
Yes. But she has to, and the syringe says, we're sorry you didn't appreciate your experience.
Yeah.
I think that's a very specific choice of words.
Oh, yeah.
But the syringe says termination. And she has to like Pulp Fiction it into her.
Into her heart.
And she does it into her heart.
Yeah, she stabs Sue's heart and then puts almost all of it.
Almost all of it. But she sees the flowers that say, break a leg, they're going to love you, as opposed to her flowers that says, you were great.
Yes.
But she looks at her glitter snow globe and the billboard with glitter on it, and she's like, I can't finish it. I can't do this. I need you because being myself. And she doesn't finish it.
God damn. That moment, like, I started crying. It's like the saddest.
She says, it's our big night.
Yeah.
They're going to love you so much. You're the only lovable part of me, which is the biggest lie society will tell you.
Yeah.
Is that idealized version of you is the only lovable part.
But there are so many people out there that not only believe that, but have been told that by society since they were fucking 3 years old. Like, so young.
Yep.
So it is so ingrained in them that it is like their attractiveness level is so tied to their worth. And like, man, it's sad. It's not their fault for feeling that way. They are programmed to feel that way. And it sucks.
It does. But the rest of this movie doesn't, because
the rest of this movie is insane, and I loved it.
The rest of this movie is fucking nuts. She goes and grabs the switch serum to basically, I think in her mind, she's like, well, we'll switch. I'll die. She'll live.
Yes. I think in this moment, she is trying to die.
Yes.
So that the younger generation can live on.
Right. And so she does have to stab her in the heart with it. They do like one last transfusion, but then they're both back.
Man, when they wake up,
yes.
When Sue wakes up and they like are both awake for the first time in the movie in the same like timeline, you're like,
yes.
Oh my God, I didn't even know this could happen. And then Sue sees the needle that says termination almost completely emptied.
Yes.
And doesn't feel great, so knows that she was about to die. And then it is like a fight to the death between the two of them. That is so metaphoric, man.
First of all, there's 35 minutes left in the movie. And I'm like, how? Because what? And when I tell you that this fight almost rivals the bathroom fight in Mission Impossible 6, I'm fucking serious. They fight to the fucking death. She smashes Demi Moore through a glass coffee table and then kicks her to death after $1 million babying her on the sink in the bathroom.
Yeah, like it starts here. They run to the bathroom and she smashes Demi Moore's face into the bathroom mirror a ton.
Yes.
And then they go into the front room and she Sparta kicks her across the room onto that glass coffee table.
Yes. This is Sparta.
Yeah. And then that's where she literally kicks herself to death. And here's what makes me so sad about this scene. It is like the perfect visual metaphor of like thinking about, man, when I was 23, I looked so good. Mm-hmm. I wish I could look that way again. Mm-hmm. Stop beating yourself up with the younger version of yourself.
Yes.
Like that is what man, it's so on the nose, but it's so well done.
Well, and by the end of it, Margaret Qualley is covered in blood.
All over her hands.
Her hands.
They show that. It's like, yes, of course she is complicit in the destruction of
herself in a way.
Well, herself, but also I do think that this is also saying like, yeah, sometimes the younger generations come in and push out the older generations of, in this case, actresses.
Right.
And that sometimes is done in a very callous way.
Yes.
And like, it's saying a lot here.
It is. But she looks up and sees the billboard and is like, I got to go do my thing.
Yeah.
So she goes to the show. But she's not feeling good because she doesn't have any stabilizer fluid and she can't get any more because Demi Moore is dead.
Yeah.
And they put her in this giant floofy dress, like huge blue floof, very blue Glenda the Good Witch. And they put this necklace on her, but then she starts hearing like the feedback noise and she's coughing and she goes to the bathroom and coughs up a tooth, living my actual nightmare.
Man,
I have nightmares about this all the time.
Yeah, that you and
me and Mikey both have this recurring nightmare. And it's like this.
Oh, this recurring nightmare that you guys have makes me glad that I don't dream.
Oh,
but
man.
It is gross. And if one tooth falls out, don't go ask for volunteers to follow. Like, don't Jerry Maguire your teeth, okay?
Oof.
Like, leave them alone, grab that one, and run to a dentist.
Okay, but can I tell you, this is how the dream goes every time for me, is that I spit out one tooth and I'm like, oh no, and I go to feel where that tooth is, and then I cough out like 12 teeth. And I have like a mouth of no teeth, and I'm always at a formal event in the bathroom about to have to go out to like talk to other people. And so like watching this, I was like, oh my God, it is the nightmare. Like this is it. Like this is exactly it.
Yeah.
Oof. Anyway, and it's one of the church teeth too. It's out in the front.
Yeah, I mean, because it has to be those for the metaphor, because why don't you just give us a smile, lady? You know, that is literally where we go right after this scene.
Right. And so all her teeth are gone. Her mouth is full of blood. And she's running and she's like, what am I going to do? And then remembers the activator. And it's almost like the movie just shows it to us and we put the parts together ourselves. But we also know it's probably a bad idea because she's like, oh, I've got it. I'll do the activator and then it'll be a more perfect version of me, because this is the visual embodiment of someone who is already at, quote, the ideal, realizing that even that is not good enough.
Yeah.
And ripping more of themselves out to try and please everyone else. But so she's going to try and get home and get to the activator. But first she runs into Dennis Quaid, who is just like, smile. And I was like, oh my God, telling a woman to smile. Like, and she smiles with no teeth, gets away with it. And then showgirls run past her and they're like, ooh, showgirls, and just chase them away.
Yeah.
Like they just run out. They're like, topless ladies, let's go. But they run after the showgirls. She gets in the elevator and it's small like the shower. And she's trying to press a button and one of her nails breaks off. It's really upsetting. Her ear falls off with the earring.
Man, she is literally falling apart. Like,
Yes.
I mean, I realize that her like source material matrix Demi Moore is dead and she can't stabilize. So she is going to fall apart.
Right.
So like, I get it, but
Yes.
it's gross. I do love that the guy in the elevator
Doesn't even notice.
doesn't even realize that she's falling apart in this moment and just goes about talking to her, really talking at her.
Right,
Because
right.
he's not paying attention to what's going on with her at all.
Right.
And I was like, oh man, isn't that just like what we be like sometimes?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So she runs out into the alley. She gets home. She gets the activator. She injects herself. She passes out. But we see immediately, because her eye splits and a bunch of different, we're like, oh no, this is too many versions. This is.
Well, it goes instead of like a 1-to-1 split, it's like a 1-to-7 split. There's like so many eyes.
Right.
And then you're like, oh, okay. So like, I wonder what the perfect version of perfect is. And then you're like, Cronenberg hell, let's go.
Yeah.
Hell yes. I love it because it is like so crazy, but not like, it's not like gross.
It's the Thing levels of horrifying.
Yeah, but it's not like so scary like the Thing was.
Right.
Man, I loved it. And I love that it was like, you know what? I know I look a hot mess right now. I am, what did they call it? Monstrous Elizabeth Sue or whatever?
So first of all, we do see that Demi Moore's face is on the back of whatever this is, screaming.
Oh, yeah.
And we get the flashback of looks like everything sure is in the right place this time.
Oh my
Let's
God,
get your name,
perfect.
age, and measurements. And then she tries to say it into the mirror and just barfs neon Surge Cola Green.
Yeah.
Then we get a title card because for Elizabeth Sparkles, who's Demi Moore's character, she got her own title card. Sue got her own title card. And now Monstro Eliza gets its own title card.
Monstro Eliza Sue. That's right. Yes.
And I was like, wait, I'm sorry. There are 30 minutes left in this fucking movie. Are we going to live as the monster for a bit? And yes, because what she does is we start getting flashbacks of like, they're going to love you. Like, we're so pretty when you smile. And we watch as this confluence of body parts puts on the dress. And I was like, fuck yes, the dress. Although multiple titties be hanging out because there's a lot of titties in play.
Although when she gets on stage, a lot of the dancers on stage also have tits akimbo. So like,
Tits akimbo.
she shows up correctly dressed.
I agree. But she sits down at her vanity and takes the earring that fell off, the ear that fell off, and she just pushes it directly into her head.
Oh my God.
There's no ear. And then she takes the other earring and pushes it directly into another spot on her head. They are not even. They're just around the head.
Yeah.
I was screaming. I was like, what are we doing? And then she tries to curl her hair, but it burns off. So she sets it down and then she cuts the photo of the original Demi Moore, the one that she wasn't happy with,
Yes.
and glues it onto her own face as we hear, pretty girls should always smile. And she puts lipstick around the picture. I'm screaming. And then she
Paige, it's
goes
perfect.
back to the studio. She goes back to the studio.
And you know what, Paige? The guy doesn't notice when he lets her in. He's like, oh my God, we've been looking for you everywhere. You go on in 5 minutes.
Yeah, he's like-
and it is straight up Cronenbergian with a paper face pasted on it.
And he's like, you're on in 5. No one notices. She walks through. She does have a flashback of everyone being nice to her back when she was Demi Moore. And you're irreplaceable. We could never do without you. And then the reality sets in that it's an empty hallway of 2 photos and all of this is thrown away. And the show is already in progress. And the score is 2001: A Space Odyssey.
Paige, it's perfect. She walks to the microphone to 2001: A Space Odyssey. And like she like gets to the microphone, she's able to talk for a little bit, and it's almost like people are just like, man, she's out there. She's crazy. I love it. This is wild. She's like so hot. She can do anything. And then they realize that though, oh no, this is like, she actually is losing it, and we did this to her. We are responsible for this.
Well, I don't think they quite understand that.
No.
I think we as the viewer do, but
I don't think they ever get it. If you look at if you look at society's face in Dennis Quaid, he looks very confused as to why this lady's having such a moment on stage, because he can't even fathom that they would have thoughts and opinions.
Well, and so she like, first of all, making very gurgly noises, taps the mic, and then is like, I'm so happy to be with you all tonight. I miss you all so much. The paper mask falls. People are horrified. She gags as what looks like an eyeball starts to open on her head, but no, it's just a boob.
She throws up a tit.
She throws up a titty that also kind of looks like a sperm.
It does,
but just like
yeah.
a titty with a tail. And at this point, I just, in my notes have, Jesus Christ, yes, bitch.
Yeah.
Like, just what is happening? And everyone screams, and they're like, it's a freak, shoot it. And she's like, no, it's still me. I'm me. I'm Sue. I'm Elizabeth. It's just me. And no one is listening.
No.
Just shoot it, monster, freak. And she's like, I'm the same. And they do, like someone hits her head and it explodes. But then a new one grows back, even more horrifying than before because it doesn't have earrings. But as the new head grows, she literally emits what I can only describe as a fire hose of blood. And at this point, my notes just say, let the bodies hit the floor.
Actually, you know what I would have liked more of in this scene? I would have liked more Carrie. Like, I don't really think she tries to kill anybody, really. She's just like soaking them down. And it clearly is like, hey, there's blood on everyone in Hollywood's hands. Like, I do feel like that this is very pointed at, like, maybe not Hollywood necessarily, but like the entertainment industry.
See, I think it's everyone.
I definitely think it should be.
Yes. We are all complicit in this system to a degree.
Yes.
And then we get blood on titties. Lots of blood on titties.
Yep.
And the pretty girl should always smile. Then we get blood on butts. And at 50, it's top. And then she's just spinning and spraying blood.
Yeah.
And then running down the hallway, spraying blood. And I am screaming with psychotic delight because this is exactly what I needed from this movie.
Paige.
Yes.
Did you secretly want what I'm going to call the Substance Teen Wolf ending, where she shows up as Monstroso Sue Elizabeth or whatever and just like nails the performance, right? And everyone in the audience is like, oh my God, we're terrible people for thinking someone who was a monster or looked like a monster couldn't also bring value and entertainment to our life. Let's all stand and cheer this person. But no, this is not the movie we're getting.
No.
But like,
no.
I secretly wanted that a little bit.
Here's what I kind of did want. That I love the ending we got. No notes.
Me too. I just really wanted to see the monster version perform the show like nothing was wrong.
Yeah, like tap dance through.
It's like in my mind, it was like in Spaceballs when the alien that comes out of the chest dances and like.
Yes.
It's so funny. Yeah.
I just pictured Hot Fuzz with the like da 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 da, like where it's Romeo and Juliet. Yes. Yeah. But we cut to after she sprayed the entire hallway down. She's on the sidewalk and one of her legs explodes and she basically collapses into a blood balloon on the sidewalk. Now, here's what I kind of did want because we still see Demi Moore's face. If a fully formed Demi Moore had climbed out of the wreckage.
Paige, I 100% said that to Natalie when we were watching this. Yes. Oh my God. What if she is able to climb out of this looking the way she did at the very beginning of the movie?
Right.
Now having the realization of I should have been grateful for what I had when I had it in that moment. But absolutely not do we get an uplifting, note to end this movie on.
No, her head is on a blob that kind of like the lunch that Lane's mom makes in Better Off Dead. And it just kind of like inches its way along the sidewalk onto her star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame, where it basically just kind of melts into a puddle of blood and the street sweeper sweeps her away. And that's the movie.
It's a real downer. So Paige, having seen the movie, having talked about the movie, literally having just seen it, we started recording not minutes after we both finished it. What did you think about the substance?
Oh, loved it. Loved it. This was so good. And the bonkers ending just makes it better. Like, it's good before you even get there, but then the fact that they were like, no, be monstrous. I'm like, yes, be monstrous. Let's go.
Yeah. I love that they lean super hard into it. I love so much about this movie. I would definitely classify myself as a film nerd. And I will say that this metaphor is so blatant that it might be too much for you. I'm just super into that. So like, if you're not into like the super blatant metaphors and like really honest, heightened look at society, if you're not into that, you will not like this movie. Also, if you struggle with these types of issues, you might not like this movie, and I get it, but I think it's so well done. And it's not rare that a movie has something to say. It is rare that a movie hones in on a thing in society so like explosively, where it like just really turns it on its head in 2.5 hours. Like, it does such a good job of that. I think that this is going to be one of those movies people talk about for a long time. I think that if a shift in Hollywood that follows this, if that happens, I feel like this movie will get a lot of credit for helping that shift start. Like, there's a lot of really cool things about this movie, but it's also really sad. It's just like devastating, especially for someone who, like, candidly, I haven't struggled with a lot of these issues. Like we talked about, guys do deal with it some, it's way less. So seeing it so blatantly painted out for me, I think is helpful when I'm trying to like understand and sort of put myself in the place of someone who's going through something like this. Because it's not something that I'm going through or going to go through probably. Because the way society values men is very differently and also toxic. It's also not great. But this one specifically really harps in on women's, quote, value. And man, does it do a great job like pointing out how stupid that is.
Here's what I'll say. This can be a sad movie.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be. It can be a chance to embrace how ridiculous society is and reinforce your commitment to being and loving and enjoying yourself.
And knowing that at any point during that, you can excuse yourself from that.
Yes.
And excuse yourself from the requirement to fit into that mold.
Yeah. Also, it has a blood cannon.
Yeah. And who doesn't love a blood cannon?
I love it. If this movie made you uncomfortable, sit with that. Think about it.
Oh, it probably intended to. Like, I think that the writer was like, I want to make people uncomfortable with this, and I'm going to.
Yeah, they did. And that is probably by design. And it's okay to take a minute and be like, ooh, how do I feel about these things? This is when art is at its best, when it provokes thinking.
Yeah.
I loved it. This might be one of my favorite movies of the year, if not my favorite.
I honestly don't know when and if I'll watch this again, but I agree. I think it's like so well done. I think it may be not one of my favorite, but I think it's one of the best we've watched.
Oh, yeah.
Anyway, Paige, do you want to hit us with some fun facts?
I do.
Well, hit us with your fun facts. Substance fun facts.
So Margaret Qualley revealed in interviews that the breasts that she has in this movie are prosthetics designed by a French makeup artist named Pierre-Olivier Persin. She said, quote, "Unfortunately, there is no magic boob potion, so we had to glue those on." And Coralie, I believe it's Fargayat, I believe is how you pronounce the last name. I might be wrong. I'm so sorry if I am. But
the director?
Yes, the director. Found an incredible prosthetic team to endow me with the rack of a lifetime. Just not my lifetime.
I heard, and I can't remember who it was, but the movie or the TV show where Sebastian Stan played Tommy Lee, and it was like about Pam and Tommy.
Oh, that was a prosthetic.
They did the same thing for both Tommy Lee's excessive dong and I think Pamela Anderson's body. Like they did the same sort of thing for.
They're getting real good at it.
I can't remember the actress who played her, who did a great job, but for that.
It's Lily James.
Yes. But having to film a lot naked, I bet it feels better to have because you're it may look like it. I don't know. I've never worn something like that.
Talk
That's
about
interesting. It's an interesting thought, right?
They made comments that there are comments about.
Oh, really? Okay.
What it was like to film this much naked. Now, sometimes the prosthetics are on, sometimes they're off. But even when they're on, it still looks naked. So I don't know. But Demi Moore has said that she was very nervous about filming full nudity, which, by the way, full nudity.
Oh, yeah.
At age 61. Because even though her character is turning 50, she was 61 at the time that she shot this. Embrace it. She looks amazing. Good for her.
She looks great for 60. Yeah, I mean, yeah.
Good for her.
Because when they say 50, I was like, I'll buy it.
She looks amazing for 50.
Yeah.
61. But she said that she felt very vulnerable, but she said that it really helped that Margaret Qualley was there with her because they were often naked together in those scenes, which, as someone who has begun frequenting Korean spas where everyone's nude, that has actually done wonders for my brain from a body image standpoint, because you see all kinds of different things and we're all in it together, and it's pretty great.
If I learned anything from that High School Musical back in the day, it's that we're all in this together. And I do think that like a lot of the body standards that we hold ourselves to are the unrealistic ones presented by Hollywood and like entertainment and like, honestly, just like social media, because people only post when they look the best, probably delete later. You know what I'm saying? It's like we're only seeing everyone's performative self, and that's going to give you a warped image of like how you should look and relate in the world. So yeah, that makes sense. It's like a reality check for your brain.
Yes. Seeing a bunch of normal people naked, you're like, oh, this is normal. This is not the airbrushed. This is what it is.
Yeah, you can't Photoshop reality.
You can't Photoshop reality, and we're all in the pool together.
All naked from above because that's how she shot it.
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
Now, in an interview, Demi Moore had said that the full mirror sequence where she's like putting on the makeup, taking it off, slapping her face, she did 15 takes for each scene, and at the end of the day, her face was raw.
I'm sure.
Putting on and taking off all the makeup.
Well, and she is like, when she's taking it off, it's so violent. She's smacking her face. It's very hard to watch.
Yes.
In a great way. Like, it's captivating.
Yes. In many interviews, she also said that reading this script felt like reading the script for Ghost, where she thought it had the chance to be amazing or a disaster. I also think Ghost is amazing. We watched it on Romancing the Pod. We all loved it. And the movie, you take it with you. It's great.
How dare you?
It's great. But she said that made it crucial for her to accept the role. Now, she was not the director's first pick.
Wow.
But during a meeting in Paris, Demi Moore gave the director a copy of her 2019 memoir, which then convinced the director to cast her, because in her memoir, she talks about her relationship to her body during those early years of her film career and how pressured and anxious she even felt back then, which I think is very interesting and vulnerable for Demi Moore to do, as someone that we have all considered Demi Moore to be like pinnacle beauty, amazing, gorgeous.
That's why I said oof.
Can have anyone she wants.
Yeah.
And to have the realization of like, even those people are in this system and feel bad about themselves sometimes.
Well, and also feel unworthy at times. Like that has to feel, it makes me sad. I don't want anyone to feel unworthy, but it has to feel sort of validating as someone who has also struggled with feeling unworthy because of how you look, to know that the most beautiful amongst us also struggle with that.
Yeah.
It is a human condition, not I'm just an ugly person, so I have to deal with this.
Right.
You're not an ugly person. That's the point.
Right.
Sorry.
Now, Universal was originally attached to distribute the film through their deal with Working Title, which was the film's production company. But during production of the film, Universal stepped away from the project, unsure of how it would be received. And according to The Hollywood Reporter, Universal was, quote, worried about the prospect of releasing the film. So Mubi ended up acquiring the worldwide rights for the film shortly before its premiere at Cannes. But it did so well on the festival circuit, it ultimately got a wide release.
Didn't it win Cannes? Didn't it win like Best Picture at Cannes?
I don't know if it got Best Picture, but it won some awards. Yeah, and it got a really long standing ovation, which is a huge thing.
I refuse to care about how long a standing ovation is. I think the fact that they're doing it just for the press release is so dumb. And think about how long you're standing and like they're clapping for 11 minutes or whatever.
Oh, no, there was one this year that was 17 minutes.
I refuse. You're going to stand and clap for 17 minutes? Did Jesus Christ direct the film?
22 minutes is the longest one, and that was Pan's Labyrinth.
Well, I mean, Pan's Labyrinth is a great movie. You're doing this for the press release. Can we all just say we did it 22 minutes and return our hands to a normal non-clapping state?
Just vote on a time. So Top Gun Maverick received a 5-minute. The Artist received a 12-minute. Neon Demon, which we've not done, 17 minutes. Amelia Perez, which also comes out this year, received 11. And The Substance received a 13-minute ovation. So it is one of the top standing ovations at Cannes, which honestly, Cannes doesn't always respect horror. So I'll take it. I'll take their ridiculous tradition because they recognized how fucking great this movie was. And I'm here for it, even with the crazy ending.
I'm glad that they were recognized at Cannes. That's great. It's a great movie. That makes me very happy.
Yes.
Stop clapping for 13 minutes nonstop, standing on your feet after the movie ends. It's weird.
What should we do instead, do you think?
Maybe starting a Q&A with the director who's also there, or like anything
That's
else.
true, because they do have to wait. They make them stand there the whole time.
And you know there's some poor PA who has to sit there with a stopwatch
and time it
so that they can then prove in case someone actually asks, okay, was it really 13 minutes? Yeah, it was 13 minutes and 0.0 seconds. I have it on my stopwatch. Like, what? Like, why are we? It's for the press release. It's so they can make news.
I lit them from the back of the room.
Ugh, it's so silly.
Well, okay, y'all, between this week and next week, brainstorm a new thing. Anyway, now, this did receive the longest ovation out of everything this year.
Cool.
So, yes, cool. Now, this is also the first body horror film to even be permitted to screen in Vietnam, but they had to cut 1 minute and 30 seconds out, which I think is hilarious because what 1 minute and 30 seconds? There's about 30 minutes of blood cannon in this movie.
I know. By the way, just to close the loop on it, it did win Best Screenplay at Cannes.
Good. It is the best screenplay. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So Demi Moore's biography, let's get back to it a little bit.
Okay.
She actually quoted Roger Ebert, who had said that, quote, "It's intriguing to watch her work with the image of her body from G.I. Jane and striptease, basically. So 1 year apart. And then earlier in Indecent Proposal and Disclosure. And he said, quote, "All these women test the tension between a woman's body and a woman's ambition and will." And Demi Moore commented in her book, "It's gratifying that someone smart got it," which I think is a really interesting observation.
And I love her response.
I do too.
Yeah.
Demi Moore worked alongside Margaret Qualley's mother, Andie MacDowell, in St. Elmo's Fire. You're welcome. The phone number for The Substance, 909-555-0199, is a famous fictional number that appears in many films, including American Beauty and The Insider. In some scenes, Sue is seen wearing star-shaped earrings. Those are similar to the earrings that Jen wears in Revenge, which was the director's previous film.
Oh, people have wanted us to watch that.
I have not seen it either. I'd be down. One of Margaret Qualley's favorite movies is The Parent Trap, in which Dennis Quaid was one of the stars. Fun fact, he briefly dated her mom, Andie MacDowell.
Okay.
Yep. The film's script originally asked to feature the song Bullet with Butterfly Wings because the opening line was, and I quote, "The world is a vampire." I'll end on this one because we did talk about this a little bit in the movie. The film is, and this is based on some interviews, partly inspired by Oscar Wilde's The Picture of Dorian Gray.
There you go. You brought that up.
There you go. Is about a man who manages to avoid aging by allowing the signs of aging and also murder and drugs and all kinds of stuff to appear on a painting of him instead of his real body.
Yeah.
However, instead of merely showing the signs of aging, the portrait ends up becoming progressively more monstrous as a reflection of his internal and immoral behavior. Just as Elizabeth's body starts to decay quickly when Sue tries to abuse the substance. In the book, obviously, or the novella, Gray hides the portrait by moving it to a more private room in his house and ultimately ends up stabbing it, trying to kill the portrait. This is reflected in the movie as Sue pokes a hole in the poster of Elizabeth that hangs in the living room and then ends up hiding it in a secluded room.
Yeah.
And those are your fun facts.
Well, thank you for those fun facts, Paige. Let's talk a little bit about box office. So what do you think the production budget was for The Substance this year? Because it came out this year.
Ooh, lots of practical effects.
Yeah.
Expensive, probably.
I would assume.
Yeah, and great camera work, amazing set design. I mean, I feel like if this cost under $50 million, it was a bargain.
Ha, Paige, guess what?
What?
This cost $17.5 million.
Good Lord, that is wizardry.
Yeah. I think the way they did it was they got some A-list talent. I think they probably got the A-list talent a little bit cheaper than they could normally get.
Sure,
And-
because of the project.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it's largely like 3 sets, you know?
Right.
So it is sort of a
That they
closed
change,
experience.
but yeah.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. So I think that that's how they saved money, but man, does it look like a $40 million movie.
Yes, easily,
Yeah.
easily. 17 is incredible
Yeah.
that they did it for that much.
Agreed. Anyway, so this movie premiered on September 20th, 2024. It was only in maybe about half the theaters available in the U.S. It was like around 1,900 theaters. And it was 6th that week. And just to sort of place it in time, the number 1 movie that week was Beetlejuice. Number 2 was Transformers 1. Number 3 was Speak No Evil. Number 4 was Never Let Go. And number 5 was Deadpool and Wolverine. What do you think The Substance made when it was number 6 that weekend?
I bet this made like $5 million.
Yeah, so it actually brought in $3.2 million. Now,
Yeah.
it fell in its second week to 11th, but in its third week, it was back up at 8.
Yep.
It has such a weird trajectory.
Well, because people heard about it.
Yeah.
People heard it fucking slapped and were like, let's go.
Yeah, so I think, and I'll be honest with you, in its third week, it made less money than in the second week, but it didn't drop off near as much. Like,
Right.
sometimes it's not uncommon to see a movie premiere and it dropped by 60% week over week.
Mm-hmm.
This movie, it dropped at around 30, like mid 30s for the first few weeks, and then like it was in the teens and 20s for the rest of its time, more or less, in theaters, which is like crazy good. Like the stay power on that's great, even though it didn't start really high up, you know?
Right.
Anyway, what do you think it brought in domestically at the box office?
I think domestically, this is lucky to see 20 million.
Yeah, it only brought in 16.2 domestically. Now,
Yeah.
internationally, it brought in $30.1 million. So
Made its budget back.
by far, yeah. I mean, it's at 16.3 right now. I bought it for $19.99 tonight, so it's still making money and will continue to do so. But they've definitely already made money already, even though the movie just came out.
Yeah.
By the way, this movie made $9.5 million in just Mexico alone.
Good on you, Mexico. Good on ya.
Yeah, and 5 million in Russia, almost 5 in the United Kingdom. Like a lot of places really turned out for this movie. Anyway, but that's your box office. Paige, do you want to hit us with that scary scale?
Ooh, our scary scale is a scale of 1 to 10 of how scary we found this movie today when we watched it, with 1 being Ghostbusters and 10 being Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Todd, what you giving it?
Yeah, my number this week is 4 because I don't typically go in for the body horror in so much that it doesn't scare me a lot. This really got under my skin, no pun intended.
Sure.
And I hated it.
Yeah, of course.
But it still wasn't like as jump scary as like jump scares get for me. So 4.
This, for me, is a feel-good romp. I will say the body horror is no joke. And I am a person who, again, not really impacted by body horror, but I'm going to give this a 3 because it's no joke, y'all. This is a lot of body horror.
Yeah.
But I also fucking loved every second of it. But I'm going to give it a 3.
Yeah.
How romantic did you find the film today?
Man, I'm going to be honest with you. It's a 1. It's a 0. I don't know. It's none. Yeah, it was terrible. It's very sad.
Anyway, that's your scary scale.
Yeah. So this week, Paige, the listeners made us watch The Substance. What are we getting into next month as we start a whole new theme? And what are we starting with?
So we have exhausted most winter holiday horror movies. We've done most of them.
Yeah.
However, for listener requests, feel free to pick one, because this month we're going to do movies that we think are gifts to each other in the spirit of holiday merriment. And so, Todd, my first gift to you is Rocky Horror Picture Show.
Oh my God, I can't wait. I love Rocky Horror Picture Show so much. This is going to be great. I cannot wait.
I'm very
Oh
excited.
my God.
I haven't watched it in a long time. You've never seen it in theater. I would encourage you to try and see it in a theater if possible. I know you probably don't have time before we next record.
I don't.
If you don't get a chance to, the next time you are in LA, we will go.
I would love to. I know the Belcourt does them here in town. It's not every weekend though, so you can't just pop on one and go.
Right.
But they do a few a year. I just haven't been able to go. I have seen a local production of Rocky Horror Picture Show when I lived in San Diego, and it's one of those shows that you're like, this is either going to be the worst production of Rocky Horror Picture Show, thereby making it the best production of Rocky Horror Picture Show, or it's going to be the best. And it was so good. It was so good. Halfway through it, I bought tickets to a week later and saw it again. And this is just San Diego's local theater. It wasn't a famous traveling tour of it.
There isn't a famous traveling tour of it.
I know. It was great, though. I loved it.
So Rocky Horror for next week.
I'm literally dying in anticipation for that. Cannot wait. So guys, your homework is to watch the best horror musical ever made. And yes, I am including Repo in that, even though I haven't seen it. There's no way it's better than Richard O'Brien's
It's not.
The Rocky Horror Picture
better.
Show, even though I'll admit there's some pacing issues. But guys, check back next week for that episode and for the movie I pick to give Paige as a gift.
Thank you. Hey, do you have any reviews?
I do have a Spotify comment that I would just love to read. That's off of our most recent episode, and that was our episode on I Saw the TV Glow with the amazing Joe K. And a lot of people said more or less what Johnny said, and that was, hope you had a kick-ass birthday, Paige.
Oh, thank you.
Also, a lot of people backed up the fact that So Weird was a great show. Like Emily said,
yes,
the So Weird shout-out clapping hand emoji I rewatched recently as an adult, and it holds up and is even stranger than I remember.
I got Disney Plus. I could fuck around with some So Weird.
I need to watch it too. So Johnny and Emily, thank you so much for those Spotify comments. And if you want to have me read your Spotify comment and or 5-star Apple review, leave us a 5-star Apple review or Spotify comment and I'll do just that. So guys, if you like this show but want to hear Paige and I talk about romantic comedies or just regular romantic movies, check out our other podcast. Some might call it a sister podcast called Romancing the Pod, where we do just that weekly. It's a lot like this show, but for romance and romantic comedies, because Paige doesn't like them. So we make her watch them, just like you guys make me watch horror over here. But if you want to follow me, I am at Todd J. Awesome on all the social media. Paige is at Rampage Wesley on Instagram?
Yes, and TikTok.
And just Paige Wesley on Twitter, because you got that before some CEO lady and she wanted it, but you wouldn't give it back. And I respect you for that.
Refuse.
Also, Paige
Suck it, other Paige Wesley.
Paige is also on another podcast. It's great. You should check it out. It's called Cult Podcast with Armando Torres, who is a wonderful person. And if you want to support this show, go to Patreon at patreon.com/horrorvirgin, where there are a lot of great levels and a lot of great things. We do the Patreon shout outs at the beginning of every episode. We do listener requests, stuff like that, bonus episodes. So you'll be getting all of that content, plus episodes a day early with no ads, and who doesn't love that? So sign up for the Patreon and get a lot of great stuff.
And that's going to be it for us, you guys. I'm Paige.
And I'm your horror virgin, Todd.
Keep it ooky spooky.
Yeah. Have an amazing week, guys. Bye. Don't hold yourself accountable to other people's beauty standards, nerds.
But also blood cannons.
For days.